Hey, gang. Normally, I don't have to do this with most of the podcasts, but in this particular case with Up, we talk about mental health and different things come up, including death, suicide. We discuss things about abuse and the things that people can go through in the course of the day and bring up in mental health situations, charities, and other things. And of course, between Up and I, explicit language for days. So, you know, to be as inclusive as I can, I wanted to put this content warning ahead of the podcast, which itself is raw and uncut from the live stream, of course. The only thing trimmed out is the starting soon screen. So it was a really good conversation. I enjoy talking to Up for the Challenge any day of the week. But for some people, it may be triggering, and I completely understand that. So please enjoy, and I'll see you around the streams. Switch the scene.
Person? PlayStation?
There we are. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Phantoma Dreams podcast. With me is Up for the Challenge. Who go ahead and introduce yourself, mate.
So I am Up for the Challenge. I'm a mental health streamer and facilitator here on Twitch, as well as YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Amazon Music, Spotify. I think that's probably all of them. I talk completely about mental health. My channel, Up for the Challenge, is just mental health. So people can come in there and talk about their mental health or somebody they're worried about, maybe completely openly. We don't have any of those. You can't say this word in here because that's no help to someone if they're already in trauma. So that's what I do. I have my charity Up for Mental Health, which is also restarting end of this month, beginning of next month as well. So that came out of this channel, and I think that's it. I generally call myself the educated idiot because I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I have a better educated voice to go with it. So
that sounds good. This is the part where usually I dive into streamer questions, but with you it's a bit of a different animal.
Right.
Although it's still a streaming question. Why mental health?
I mean, there's a kind of a couple of different answers. So obviously, if anybody that does know me, I lost my wife to brain cancer in 2019. Then come 2020, I was suicidal. I basically was done. Then a mix of a few different things basically meant that the day that it was planned for came and went. And one of those things was 5 different Twitch channels. So I ended up then kind of finding my way into Twitch communities randomly because I didn't know what Twitch was. I was one of those that had no idea. And I just kind of came onto Twitch, started in a community, started chatting, and then I was on for maybe a couple of months. Mm-hmm. And a couple of the channels just went, why the hell don't you start streaming? And I was like, what? I had a Dell 1700 series laptop. That was it. I had no PC, I had nothing else. I was like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. How can I start streaming? And they said, just go on. So I went on the next day, and because I was like, I'd always obviously was struggling with my own mental health at the time, and had struggled for years. And I really hated a film called Rain Man because of its misrepresentation of autism. And so I ranted for 2 hours on mental health. And then one of the channels just went, wow, that was amazing. I was like, well, what are you on about? They're just like, you talk for 2 hours without stopping. I was like, yeah, like is that difficult? And they're like, yeah, no many streamers do that. Like other streamers games, there's something else. They don't talk. I was like, oh, okay, so the fact that I don't shut up is a helpful thing here then. Cool, fine. And so I ended up kind of then bit by bit streaming. Got to know a few different streamers, and then suddenly I was a streamer out of nowhere. I was suddenly affiliate, and bit by bit everyone knew who I was. So it was very strange. It just kind of came out of nowhere. I had some involvement with mental health. Beforehand, I'd been the president of Student Minds, which is a student mental health group at my university. But beyond that, I wasn't that involved outside of university. And then I have opinions. I don't tend to suffer fools, and so I just kind of went for it.
That's kind of the story when it comes to a lot of people and they start doing a thing. Usually they kind of fall into it or back into it, unless it's the full intention from start to finish. Like, I find myself when I came out of high school, although my back history was more messed up at that point than most people because I already had, 2 kids and things were wild. But most people, when they come out of high school or even come out of university, they might have a vague idea, but where they end up is generally not where they're aimed. And it's usually through circumstance or just whim that we end up doing these things. Like myself with streaming, it was something I toyed with for years, and then the pandemic hit. I was home, I was off work, I had nothing better to do, so I'm like, all right, well, why not? And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, you're probably one of the only streamers that's older than me, but I'm an old man for this, so it wasn't something I do. Like, I'm at the crossover of Gen X and Elder Millennial, so streaming wasn't a thing you do. Like, I had no fucking idea. I'd done some YouTube because I was up for the challenge before Twitch. I was up for the challenge on YouTube because the whole point, one of the other things that saved me was I made a promise to my wife to help Brains Trust, which is why I'm raising money from this month. And so I created a YouTube channel called Up for the Challenge, basically saying, well, I'll do any challenge to try and raise money for Brains Trust. Yeah. And then when I came onto Twitch, it just kept the name. So it's just become synonymous with me now. Like my original, and it still is my logo now. I basically went online, found some logo maker, put bits together from all over the place, added it onto something else, like a different background, and then just got it removed, vectored it, and then I was like, right, that's my logo. Like, it was it's put together, but that's my logo.
Yeah.
And mountains and everything, because it was like, that's a challenge, and then that's how I've ended up doing it. It's such a weird thing. I just fell into it. I was never intentional of this. I never intended to be affiliate, and I've no intention of going any further in terms of like Twitch fame or something. I think fuck. So it was very much falling into it.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the people who drive towards fame specifically are usually the kids that burn out within the first year, where the people who not necessarily reach fame, but still reach a certain level of stability when it comes to viewership are the ones who are doing it purely because they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they end up either enjoying it or they find meaning and value in it. And like, is that kind of what keeps you going, is the value you find in doing mental health in the streaming, or is it just because it's become part of who you are?
I think it's probably because it's become a part of who I am. I took 5 months off because a lot of different things, and much of it caused by me, some of it not, and just I couldn't take it, and so I took 5 months out, went and traveled the world from December, and then I just went, you know what, I don't have to go back. Like there was a significant amount of time when I was like, I don't know if I'm going to return. And then it was almost a whim where I just went, fuck it, I'm going to try. I'm going to go back and let's just see. Let's just go back. Because it's weird because I am known more as Up for the Challenge than I am by my real name. I've said this before, that for several months, I was never called by my real name because no one, like when you ring someone up on the phone, you don't say their name because you know who you're ringing. You don't say their name. My mum wouldn't say my name when she rang me up. She'd just say hello. And I don't live near any of my family, and we were in lockdown. So for the longest amount of time, I was just Up for the Challenge, or Up or Challenge, or for one person, I was For the. So like that's who I was. So it became and kind of is part of who I am, because I am just Up for the Challenge. I'm called that constantly. I don't I don't go into people's stream and get called anything else. So
Well, I mean, that's partly the culture on Twitch too, because usually people like certain people. I find myself with certain people, I'll use their real name if I know it in the right circumstance. But generally, as far as the streaming circle goes, or even gaming in general, you're used to using people's nicknames and character names or streamer names because that's just how it is, right? To use a real name. Look, I shouldn't say real name because in a way our streaming names become part of our identity. So they're just as real as our regular names anyway. But our offline names, using those, there's an intimacy there that's earned that people sometimes don't realize the emphasis that goes with it because it's not as casual. A lot of these relationships, especially on Twitch, are very transactional. It takes either a long time or something significant to cross that boundary from either transactional or parasocial to real friendships, which can happen, and they're just as legitimate. But it's a weird creature, and part of what makes Twitch and streaming in general a very strange place is when you find yourself on that line between friendship and audience and streamer, that it gets weird.
Yeah, it is weird. It's even strange for me because I find the people that I do consider friends, I still find it weird when they call me my name.
Mm-hmm.
If I've met them on Twitch, because like I don't know, when I've had friends as a kid or something like that, they call me by my nickname.
Yeah,
they don't call me by. So it kind of feels weird if someone goes out their way to say my real name when I've met them through Twitch. I'm like, no, I'm Up. Like, and it's weird because when I do my podcast, then I do kind of go with my name because I go with the person I'm streaming stuff. But even on there, I've had people like Monty Ball, the former NFL guy, part of Untucked Keg, who just called me Up for the entire time. I don't think he even realised he was doing it, but I was Up. So that's kind of part of it. Parasocial relationships are always a weird one because I think they get weirder or at least more complicated for someone like myself because you get embroiled more because of your own. But what I mean, the first thing is to say for me and anybody else that's doing mental health, we're all fucked up. Like we're all fucked up. The biggest thing that my ex-wife, my late wife, my late wife used to say about mental health nurses is that they're all a bit fucking crazy. You know, if you work in it, you're all a bit fucked up anyway. And I think so. It's hard for us a lot of the time to really know where we stand, what we're doing, even really pay attention to how we come across. And then conversely, it's hard for other people because other people don't see us the same way. We've been the reason they're still here. Occasionally, we're the only person they've spoken to for the day. And so there's a relationship they create that they kind of need, and it feels strange to discuss the idea that it isn't maybe what they think it is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it can be a little bit strange, I think, for mental health people.
Well, definitely, because you're also, especially when, like, I've been in your channel, so I've seen the conversations that people have, and there's a level of trust that, well, I don't, maybe trust isn't the right word. There's a level of comfort that they're able to talk to you about, you know, what's going on with their day or whatever, that they generally don't find. And as they get that kind of comfort, it does kind of become a trust thing. They're trusting you that you'll listen. And so it makes for an interesting relationship dynamic because you're just, you know, the friendly stranger that they're talking to, and you're getting to know them, but it's more you getting to know them with what they're sharing and less them getting to know you. So it kind of makes that imbalance that can create those kind of weird things with the parasocial nature of relationships on Twitch, because, you know, it's never going to be balanced.
No, and it's like I say, it's strange the other way around as well, because I think we as streamers can sometimes kind of find ourselves in that as well, and we can be just as kind of inappropriate in terms of relationship connections as other people, and so parasocial relationships kind of go both ways, and we can be just as stupid or whatever as other people. But usually I think there's an ability to pull back from that does become problematic. Like you say, there's a trust there, and there's a way that I can speak to certain people in a way that you couldn't have with other streamers.
Mhm.
Like I straight up call one of my one of the community. I straight up tell him regularly that his dad's a cunt.
Yeah.
Because of the stories I've heard and everything like that, and I'm very straightforward with it, and he listens. The idea that you could have that with another streamer, no, I don't think it'd be there.
Yeah.
Not in a not in a non-joking way.
Mhm.
There's other streamers that could joke about it, but I don't think there's the relationship has to be there in terms of trust, like you say, for any words that I have that may be visceral or otherwise to actually have some kind of connection.
No, absolutely. And you're completely right with streamers also, because we suffer that adoration of the crowd kind of thing, where we're getting attention from people who are, regularly in our channel and talking to us, or even like for a lot of streamers who are affiliates or partners, we get the big donations or the lot of gifted subs or the bits, and that all feels good and it's nice, but it's that adoration of the crowd where we feel like, oh, these guys really, really like me. They must be my friends kind of thing. And it's you have to step back and realize that it's not quite the way you think it is a lot of the time. I mean, they appreciate the entertainment we're providing, or, something about our channel and what we're doing, makes them feel good and they enjoy it, whatever. And, there's money involved, but that's not friendship of the kind that we might be wanting.
Yeah, and I mean it's like
Yes,
I say,
Major.
it's really difficult. I think a lot of the time because, like I say, especially with mental health streamers, we're fucked up. We're fucked up, and so it's very difficult. I think for us to sometimes separate who we are, and interactions that are needed because we aren't we are not stable. We're
Mhm.
not, like, I know. And if any of my friends who are mental health streamers see this, you're fucking not. Like, we're not. We may be at the moment, but that doesn't mean mentally we are fully. And so and that's kind of what a lot of people like to come into our streams for, because they know, like, we've been just as bad as they have, or potentially still are. So it does, like, we fall into a lot of traps in our own psyches as well as just anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed that there is this is a bit of a hard one to judge because of how common the overdiagnosis of ADHD is specifically, or even the spectrums of autism. But there is a lot of neurodivergent folks who stream.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're drawn to it partly because it keeps our brains firing in multiple directions all at the same time, while at the same time there's an element that makes up for it that we don't find off stream in our off stream relationships, because with object impermanence, we go weeks without talking to our offline friends. But if we're streaming every day, we've always got these people we're talking to, so it's easier to have those kinds of connections that fulfill us in ways that we don't seem to find offline, because we just don't have that regular continuation of connection.
Oh yeah, I mean, I haven't spoken to the person that I would consider my best friend in 2 years. And I don't generally leave the house. I'm I'll go out for a run, I'll go out to get my shopping, and then I come home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very much like, I am very much a hermit to a point, but in terms of how people on Twitch would probably describe me, it'd probably be the exact opposite. They'd be like, oh no, he's very extroverted, and no, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not someone, like, if I'm outside, I'm not someone that necessarily is going to shy away from something, but I'm not someone who's going to go look to be outlandish. In fact, I
Yeah.
hate most of those things. I remember being at school and plain refusing, because this is back in the 90s when nobody understood what the hell neurodivergence was. Where, like, I was in a tutor group for school, and they'd be like, oh yeah, so today for our tutor group, where everyone has to dance. I'm like, no, I'm not
Yeah.
doing it. I fucking refuse. And then being called the bad kid for it. So I'm not that person. I'm not the extrovert that would do all that kind of thing. there are people like that. Mindset by Dave is someone that's neurodivergent that would absolutely go and doing dance, and he does sings on stream and stuff. But that's not me. I'm very much introverted generally. If I'm going for a drink, yeah, cool. I'll go and hang at a pub and chat. But I'd much rather be in a quiet bar than a club. Like if I'm in a club, I'm sitting in the corner in a hoodie. Like I'm not involved. So yeah, I think we definitely get something more out of it, because I am the loud, angry Brit who can argue with you and will happily deal with your trolls on Twitch. Whereas in reality, outside of that, I'm the quiet guy who keeps himself in their house. Like it's very different. Yeah.
Well, that's because when we're online, whether it's on Twitch or even just on Discord calls with friends, we can turn it off at any moment. We can just go, yeah, I'm done, and close it out, turn it off, we're done. Our social battery is empty, and we're off doing our thing. Like, when we're out in public, unless we start, like, legitimately just run away from people, we can't quite break contact as easily as we might like.
I mean, this is my safe room as well. Like, in front of me are... I've got running medals and some trophies from darts and snooker. I've got degree certificates and other qualifications behind me. I've got my first ever marathon t-shirt up there. I've got a present from one of my wife's wedding. I've got order of service in front of me for my wife, picture of my wife. I've got her ashes. I have all my books behind me, and I have my computer and chess, and I have my martial arts gear and stuff like that. I'm in a safe place here because I've got everything that I need in terms of my own pride that I might need, which I really hate the idea that pride and selfishness are used as bad things, because they're not. And so that makes me able to kind of interact better in here than maybe anywhere else. And like you say, I can just turn the camera off. I don't have to do that. Although I'm actually one that usually gets everyone else to turn the camera on, because I find it weird to talk to just a voice. But but I am, you can just go, okay, I'm done with the call, bye. Like I did when I had a troll that I couldn't ban the other night. When Twitch, literally none of the things were working, and like I will chew a troll out and then ban them, but I can't allow them to continue to be a problem inside my stream if there's other people there. I'm fine with dealing with them and them coming for me, fuck them. But the other night, none of the stuff from Twitch was working. So again, Twitch, sort yourselves the fuck out. So I just ended stream. I didn't give a warning, because I'm not going to fuck around with that, because he'll just stick around. I ended the stream, tried to make sure everything was okay, and then just started up again. So, it is one of those things. You can't just stop it and start.
Oh, exactly. Side question, because I have to ask. Among your books, how many old textbooks do you have?
Old textbooks?
Old textbooks from old courses. Did you hang on to any of them?
No. I mean, it kind of depends what you mean. Because I've got manuals. I've got manuals from my So from mental health first aid course, I've got the manual there. I've got some of the manuals from my mindfulness diploma and from my teaching diploma in mindfulness, from my teaching diploma in meditation, and I've got a lot of kind of books that university graduates would use, but they're not like So I've got a lot of like business textbooks. They're not textbooks to me, because they're just, history. Like, I've got this laid out in a different way. So I have like history books, I've got business, I've got philosophy, politics. So I've got books here that could get someone through a few different types of degrees, but they're not technically textbooks. So
well, I'm playing to a North American crowd, so I have to use terminology that they might understand.
Okay, so
sorry if that sounds insulting to my American and Canadian kids, but it's true.
Better education system here. I mean, I've got... Okay, in that case, I have books here that could get you through about 5 different degrees. So I've got books here that could get you through philosophy, politics, religion, business, probably economics as well. and sociology and a few things as well. So I have books that could do that. So if that's what you call textbook, for us a textbook is a very different thing. So in terms of a textbook, then I've got those. So
well, see, I'm always curious about what people hold on to, especially from their education, because you'll find people either have several books or they have none.
Well,
like myself, I've got books on marketing, communication, economics, and politics. Because that's a big part of my background. And then I've got game design books out on my other bookshelf because I spent a lot of time in and around the game industry, especially with design and writing and things like that. And I still reference those, and I just like my marketing and my communications one, because Twitch, if you are one of those kids who want to have a career on Twitch, it's a big part of it is marketing and self-marketing, brand building, and communication, because we're all communicating. That's a big part of streaming, is being able to communicate to people, whether it's talking about games or mental health or cooking or whatever it is you happen to be doing. You're communicating an experience with other people.
Yeah, I mean, I've written my own books, which are just waiting to get published this year, so they'll be on my shelf. So I have my own books to do that as well. But I mean, I have one of my own books anyway. Well, a book I wrote for, I have on my shelf as well. So, you know, that was a fun one. That was for martial arts and self-defense. But that's Dill Frill. He's got a copy of that, I think. But yeah, no, I do have that. But most of them aren't even from my personal education past. But I worked for a university, and so I could just grab books. Like I used to work for the School of Criminology, Law, and Computing. So I got books from there. I used to work for the business department, so I can get books there. I nearly ended up teaching. I ended up lecturing in policing and liberal policing, as well as for business as well. So I didn't, I got some of the books so that I could know what way that they wanted it to be taught, which was very badly.
Yeah, well, it's like we still have my wife's book on medical terminology and some of her nursing books, because I read them because it's interesting to me, because I will read or learn anything. I am an avid documentary series watcher. Like I was once riveted a couple of years ago on a documentary about spoons. It was fascinating to me because it was 3:00 in the morning. I was awake. I couldn't sleep. It was on, so I watched it, and it was interesting. But, you find out a lot about people, especially when you talk about books, because either people love them or they absolutely hate reading.
Now, I didn't read a book until I was 27. I passed my original undergrad without ever reading a book. So I've had a weird relationship with books because I have a near eidetic memory. So I don't need them. If somebody reads it, or if I glance at it, I know it. So I used to have big issues when I was doing my undergrad, because they basically just kept telling me to reference the book. I was like, I just know this. Like, we can't just remember it. I was like, I fucking can. Like, I got into trouble nearly got into trouble for an exam that I did, because, I mean, I know the exact thing it was. It was in Inverness, Nairn and Lochaber in 1992. Sir Russell Johnson of the Liberal Party stood for election and won with 26.3% of the vote, meaning at the time he was the lowest elected by percentage MP in British governmental history. I put that in an exam, and they said there's no way you could just have remembered that. That's got to be. And I was like, no, I do just remember that. Like, I just know that because I've seen it from somewhere. So I passed my original degree without ever reading a book, at least not reading a book end to end. And then I read a book called Prime Minister Portillo and Other Things That Never Happened, which was a book on counterfactuals, like if one detail in history had changed, what would have happened? And I enjoyed that, because I don't like fiction. Because I'm dyslexic and just the way my brain works, I cannot envisage fantasy. I fucking hate fantasy anyway, but I can't envision fiction books. I have some fiction books here now, but they're like Lee Child's, and like, so they're Jack Reacher and things, where I have some knowledge of certain subjects within it, and also he's very kind of aggressively detailed on how he puts it forward. Like at the beginning of most of the books, it even gives you a full breakdown of what the guy looks like, his weight, his height, his eye color, where he was born. Like, so it's very different there. But I never understood when people would say, "Oh, it's better in the books," or like, well, I just didn't envisage the person to look like that. I'm like, what the fuck are you on about? Like,
Yeah.
it's a book, they're words. What are you talking about? And I've never been able to do that. So I always turned away from books. And then when I read that book, I was like, okay, well, I'm interested in these kind of people. And I just bit by bit started buying books up and reading through them. And then I've read hundreds of books in the past few years, and ended up here, and I've got now random ones. I mean, the only things I used to read, which is the nearest thing, was comic books, because comic books came with pictures. So people always find it strange that I passed exams without reading, but it's like I just know the stuff, so I never need to do it. And it's been the advantage of me in education, because I'll just know it. It's not a big fan of me and my ex-girlfriends and my wife, because I do the trick of, if you're going to mention something, I will remember the fucking date and exactly what you said. But other than that,
that usually never works well.
Yeah, they don't like the fact that I'm the one that's remembering it. But no, I did have a really bad relationship with books. I fucking hated them, and then it clicked. It just clicked, and bit by bit. Same with education in general, actually. I did not like education. I didn't even really like education when I did my first degree. I was just like, nah, fuck this. Like, I was elected to local government. I was elected as a politician whilst still at university. Like, this is the actual thing. Why the fuck I don't need to worry about this. And then at some point it just clicked. I ended up teaching and ended up doing a load of stuff. And it was just like, oh, okay, I actually enjoy this. So it was weird. None of it was something I liked until I was into my 20s. So yeah, it just changed for that.
Well, see, that's what's interesting to me, because I grew up reading. I read everything. From the moment I could read, I was reading. It was every fantasy, sci-fi, nonfiction, whatever it happened to be, because that was, for a long time, that was my only escape. Between that and video games. But when I, being the old man that I am, video games for me, we got a new game once every couple of months, if we were lucky. So, but books could get all the time. I would spend afternoons in the used bookstore just looking at stuff and buying books for cheap. I could walk out of there, I could have spent like $20 and come home with like 30 books. And that would, keep me busy for a week. And even now, I have to read at least half an hour every night before I go to sleep, or I don't sleep.
See, I'm a silence person, so I the thing that people used to not understand is that I'd be on a bus, because we have public transport in this country. I would be on a bus to work, and I'd be reading whilst listening to music. So before I go to bed, I have music. But I do enjoy reading now. I don't read that fast though, because of dyslexia. I'm quite a slow reader. Compared to some people. I mean, my wife used to read things at a ridiculous speed. I'll be like, how the fuck have you even finished that? Like, it's been 3 days. That took me like a month. But yeah, no, TV was my getaway when I was a kid. TV, which is also the reason that I ended up knowing things, because I always used to love this. Is two reasons. One, when people used to go, you can't do anything off TV, I'm like, that's what documentaries exist for. Like, I fucking can, because I remember it, so I'd remember the details. So I'd then know things to go into school or college or university. And then, of course, with TV in the UK, from the mid 70s to like the 1990s onwards, before 24-hour TV came in, basically before that era of like the late 90s, when it's suddenly every 24 hours. At the end of the day on BBC Two, so the second biggest TV news broadcast in the UK, one of the universities in the UK took over the channel. So the Open University, which is one of the most well-respected universities in the country, took over the channel. So they'd literally be teaching you physics, mathematics, English, like history. You're getting a lecture for that, like 2 hours of TV, you were getting a lecture. And because of my memory, I got a load of my schooling out of the way doing that. So without having to read, it used to really confuse, and that's why my maths, I think, when I was a kid, was a lot better as well, because I don't sleep. Most people on Twitch know this. I don't really sleep, but I've never have
Yeah.
done though. So I'd stay up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when I was a kid, listening to astrophysics, and so
Yeah.
TV was always my kind of way of dealing with things. So
Well, that's why it's interesting when I hear about, like, because I can understand, like, I've always had the ability to picture what I'm reading, like that. My imagination always constructed that way. That's partly because as a writer, I was doing those things. I'd have to take the image and put it into what I'm writing. But I could understand not being able to at the same time, because it'd be like, well, these are just words. And if there's no picture, it's just words. Like, I can understand that. And I've learned that from my son, who is on the autism spectrum. He's now 21. Watching him develop when he was younger, like, he hated books, but he adored TV. And we actually used television and closed captioning is what helped him learn how to read.
and same thing with me, because I'm on the spectrum as well. So maybe there's a connection there. But the idea of I don't get how people can see stuff. It really confuses me. I used to think people were lying, because I do not understand how you can see something, because it's not there. Like it's definitely this logical thing that most people connect ASD with, which they shouldn't, but it plays out occasionally. That it's not true. That's why after Promise to Portillo and other things that never happened, that was the first kind of near to fiction book that I had. Almost every single book here, except for a few here, are all non-fiction. That's what I go to. That's the non-fiction. Why would you actively want to lie to yourself? Now that's weird, because obviously I watch TV, but I can see, like, well, they were in this and they're in this as well. Like it's quite obvious kind of lying. But I do have that kind of Galaxy Quest moment when I think about books. In terms of fiction, like, I've got the only books I've got up here that are fiction, apart from, like, you know, John. I've got James Patterson and Lee Child. So I've got those kind of collections. Outside of that, we go to the classics. Like, we're going to, like, Les Miserables, to some old school, like proper old school, like 200-year-old fiction books there. And they're read because they are cultural, and so I read them because they're cultural. But beyond that, the idea of creating a character from that makes no sense to me. Like, I don't understand how you can do it. It just does not make sense to me. It's why I could never be an illustrator for a comic book, because I'd be like, well, it's that, whatever you fucking want it to be. Just give me an image.
Yeah, just tell me what it actually looks like. Like,
exactly.
Right down to the details. Yeah. No, I
yeah.
can get that. See, I would think that maybe alt history might interest you. Like, that's one of the big things I'm into these days is alt history. Harry Turtledove's series on like the changes for the American Revolution, or the Civil War, and one change happened and it ended up that the Confederacy won, and that went on a whole other tangent. And then there was another series he did where World War II started early and a series of events happened.
Carry on. The book I was talking about, Prime Minister Portillo and Other Things That Never Happened, it's a counterfactual, so it's old history. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. And this is British history, and there's one in here that is one of my favourite ones, which is if Lord Halifax had better teeth and was and actually wanted to be leader, the war would have been lost to Germany, because England would have become neutral. And if England becomes neutral, because I've said this, and Americans always try to go, oh yeah, but we would have won it. It's just England. I'm like, no. If England had pulled out the war, the entire Commonwealth comes with England at that point. There's no India, there's no Poland, there's no Australia. Like, every fucker goes. The only country that was potentially kept fighting would have been Canada. But beyond that, probably not. And so it's like, because Lord Halifax was the original choice for most people. It certainly wasn't Churchill. People didn't fucking want Churchill. And we were in war, and the only reason Churchill got it was because he was allowed to speak in the Commons when Halifax, effectively trying to get himself out of the running, I think, booked an appointment to see the dentist, and just kind of went, oh yeah, no, Churchill can talk, and Churchill got the support to become prime minister. Outside of wartime, Churchill was prime minister one more time. It was fucking atrocious. If it had been before the war, and Halifax had become prime minister, which was very possible, we would have become neutral because he'd said all the way through he wanted a peace treaty with Hitler. So it would have been a completely different deal if Churchill was in charge. And yeah, it's that kind of thing. And then all of this falls in line. So many different stories. But yeah, that was the nearest thing to fiction, was alt history or counterfactuals. Was the yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, with those, it's always fascinating how the course of events could have changed based on one decision. So, that always appealed to me because being a history buff, I enjoy history, but seeing the various alternatives are also interesting, which is, was a big draw for me. But, now that we've gone down this tangent, we'll move back over to the thing.
Yeah.
What about gaming? Like, I know you're not a game streamer, although occasionally you do a little bit, but
no, Up for the Challenge.
Not anymore. Well, no, not Up for the Challenge. Up for bad gaming.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember. I'm
specifying because of the fact that I am on here as Up for the Challenge.
True.
They are absolutely separate.
But I would not about so much the streaming, but I mean your relationship with gaming itself.
Yeah. So there's a couple of games. So when I'm late night, for instance, before I go to bed, I tend to go onto Twitch and find Words on Stream streamers and go in and help them out, basically. I did it to Tier yesterday, actually. I took someone that I was playing Words on Stream with and took them into, because the person I was playing against, one of the streamers, is a Words on Stream streamer. So I was like, well, he can probably go in and help Tier, even if I'm not there. So I do that, and I do enjoy Words on Stream because it's one of those things. But I fucking hate normal gaming. Like, my biggest issue, I have two. One is the joypad being brought in, the joysticks. Fuck off with that. No, there's no need for it. It's too sensitive. No. Give me an old school controller, and also the idea that I need to be in control of my camera. Because why? The game knows where I'm going, so why can't it move the camera? Like, I hate that so much. So fucking much. Like, I don't want to have control of the fucking camera. I just don't. Like, Fall Guys, for instance, when I was I was better at Fall Guys on my computer keyboard than I was on a normal joystick, because it's fucking all over the place. So yeah, my relationship with gaming was, I stopped gaming 23 years ago, and then I've only really kind of come back in the past year. But even then, it's I don't even know what you call the type of game. Like, you answer a question and it continues. I've forgotten what you call them things. But like, that's the best one for me. Or games like Inscription. Really enjoyed Inscription. Really enjoyed Inscription. I think that is part of my neurodivergence as well, actually. I think that's a very good game for neurodivergence because there's a mystery element to it, and it's a card game. So it's taking kind of the real world, because they have, like, it is like, it plays by the rules of the card. Like, you could easily, and I if they haven't got in the plans to create a card game version of Inscription, they're fucking insane, because it works, at least for the first, like, act one, as they call it, where it's an actual card game. Yeah, because you can buy, like, there's different elements, like you walk around the cabin and stuff, but if you made it into a game that you draw a card and it tells you have just done this, like, you can still do it. So yeah, that kind of game is really good, but where you have very simple controls and you're just following the rules. Like, I'm one of those people that I play Monopoly by the rules. I really don't like the idea of playing games when they're not. What the fuck are you playing for?
Yeah.
And like, anyone that says they don't play to win is a fucking liar. I don't care. Or you're lying. Because the reason you're lying is, are you playing that game by the rules? If you're playing by any kind of rules, those rules are designed to make you win. So by default, you must be playing to win because of the fact that you're playing a game by any kind of rules. By default, you are playing to win. So yeah, I'm very much down the road. So like Monopoly, for instance, you don't put money in the middle for free parking. That has never been a rule in Monopoly. Never has been. Don't understand where it came from. So in terms of offline gaming, like chess or Monopoly, Trivial Pursuit, I love. And quiz games so like Jackbox with Trivia Murder Party, and Words on Stream, I can do. Like if it's I really hate the terminology of this, but it's the only one that works. If it's an intellectual pursuit, then I enjoy it, but I don't like that wording because it denotes an idea of intelligence, and I don't like that. But if one of those kind of puzzly, problem-solving kind of, I like those. But in terms of normal gaming, no. And Pokemon can fuck off. I'm sorry. I was too old for that both times. I think. Like I don't fucking understand it. The cartoon is shite. The first game is shit with shit graphics. It's like Minecraft. I don't understand that fuck as well. We spent 20 years trying to make things a better resolution, and you bring it back to this. So Pokemon hasn't improved the way it looks for years. Like I don't get that. So yeah, none of that. Like all the biggest ones, I just don't get it. I do not understand.
What about grand strategy?
In terms of what though?
It's a genre, basically. Like Civilization, or the games where you're controlling an empire, moving armies around, the politics involved. Stellaris is a good example.
So, I mean, I've probably not played them anywhere on the right scale, so maybe I need to. But whenever I've played the smaller versions, which is when they're on a mobile generally, because that's the only kind of game I did, I got bored so fucking quickly because there was no eventual goal when I saw that. Like it was just, oh, let's keep winning, yay. Like, there's no. What's the fucking point? Like that at that point, it's just like there's nothing to get. There's nothing to collect. There's nothing. Like it's weird. Like even the Stanley Parable has a fucking end. It has several. Like there's no point to Stanley Parable, but at the same time there is. Do every one of the endings. But those other games seem to have no point at all and don't seem to have an end because there's continually an add-on that makes it unending. Like what? Why? Yeah. It's like having a
with grand strategy, it's usually a case of either you win by domination, or you get a political victory, a diplomatic victory, or a knowledge victory is possible, where you've achieved a certain level of technology and you go off to space or whatever it happens to be, and then the game ends. But it's about the series of decisions and how you handle relationships with other nations and your technological growth and things like that.
I mean, I guess that would be because one of my favorite games when I came back and I was on the other gaming. What I really enjoyed was Road 96. And that was, I mean, it's not the same, but it was a series of questions that you answered and how you interact with people. So I suppose there was an element of that with that. Yeah. But it was, again, it's a similar thing to the Stanley Parable. It's kind of, there's a different end, and then you eventually, you see what happens at the end. Whether someone, like I went through it after I finished the game, because like there's an eventual end, but even that eventual end is different depending on and I went and went online and like different people get killed at different points, and so there were some differences there, but. Yeah, I think the way that you've described it, maybe there's a similarity, but then the idea of just like, it kind of ends because you've kind of achieved something, like that bores the shit out of me. That whole idea bores, like it sounds boring. I don't get it. Like I want to win. I don't like, I'm very, it sounds awful because it is possibly one of the most toxic neurodivergent traits, but why the fuck am I going to play something I can't win?
Yeah.
Like I'm a chess player. I'm also formerly became a chess player in the UK Land Chess Challenge in England and got to the last 1,500 of 52,000 that entered. I was in the mega finals. I played snooker. I ended up being a county level playing against professionals. I was an ex-darts player. I became county level playing against professionals. And it's not because I'm necessarily good at them, it's because I keep playing until I can fucking beat everyone. And that's just in terms of a game. So a game that's just kind of by yourself where I don't understand why you'd want to. It sounds boring.
Well, that's why I'm curious, because like for me, so much of my identity from when I was a kid has been wrapped up in gaming. That's one of the few real continuous things. Reading and games. which kind of explains why a lot of the games that I like JRPGs and whatnot, are heavily reliant on reading, because, well, reading in games, it has defined a big aspect of my life. And I can pinpoint to key moments in my life, and I'll remember the games I was playing more than I'll remember specific events. Because no matter what was happening, I had this thing to rely on as my escape.
Yeah.
So, that's why I'm curious about it, because we've talked about this on Wrecked Wizards podcast about the retro games that we enjoyed and our very strong opinions about them compared to current games. Because there are a lot of games that are excessively popular right now that I don't fucking understand.
Minecraft.
Exactly. My kids adore Minecraft.
I understand why.
And Roblox and all the games and I cannot. I don't get it.
It's like getting an image and just decreasing the proper pixels. I don't understand. We spent 20 years trying to make it look more realistic, and now we've gone back to a time before Super Mario Brothers. I don't get it. But yeah, I mean, there's consoles. Obviously, the Game Gear I have fond memories of, as anyone that's interacted with me in any kind of thing will know. And yeah, the NES. I remember playing on the NES, and for me, probably I went to the arcades a lot when I was a kid, and I played beat 'em ups because I did martial arts since the age of 4 years old. So it was the kind of, well, I know this isn't possible in real life, but I quite like to throw a fireball at someone. So I'd play them, and they were cool because they were also going away to the arcades. There's also machines you can win money on. And I shot from a very young age as well. So there were shooting games, which is hilarious because I've had American friends that come over and get really annoyed that I beat them at the shooting game. It's because I've been shooting for longer. But yeah, no, I liked those. But that was always kind of holidays that you'd go over and be like, okay, I'm going to go down to Littlehampton was where I went, a place called Littlehampton. It's like, right, the arcade at Littlehampton, we'll go down and play on the arcades, or we're going to Hemsby in Norfolk and I'll play on the arcades there and I'll play for some money. But beyond that, games were never, it was always tabletop games, because my parents were born during the Second World War. So they didn't do games at all because they did not make sense to them. And I can tell you the way that my mum thinks, and this is why I actually got my mum to do a test on for ASD recently, because of the fact that my mother doesn't understand the idea of watching films, because her response to them is, he was already pretending to be that person, so why am I watching another thing where he's pretending to be this? She doesn't understand films. It's fucking weird. So there's some of that in me with that as well. But yeah, tabletop games were always the way forward, which is, like I say, me and my dad would play Monopoly for fucking the whole weekend. It got banned in my house at one point because we'd spend the entire weekend playing Monopoly. When you've only got two people playing Monopoly, it can go on for a long time. And yeah, we'd play that. We'd play cards, and chess, and Trivial Pursuit when I was older, because then I just memorized the answers. So yeah, it just became that. So gaming for me was far more about tabletop games. I mean, chess, for instance, I learned to play chess so that I could have my lunch quicker, because of the rules in my school. You couldn't go into dining hall unless you were let in by prefects.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if you get prefects in North America, but
they get it from Harry Potter. That's probably the closest analogy that a lot of people would get.
Quite the same, but yeah. So you'd be let in by prefects, and you'd be let in at 6 at the time for a bell, unless you were in the chess club, because the chess club was allowed in the hall early because it was the only place that they actually practiced. So I learned to play chess just so I could eat early. So that was my life, and then I'd go and play basketball and things like that. So I was always, I think I grew up in that generation where it wasn't normal to play video games. There were people that played video games, and I did play video games occasionally, but that wasn't what you got told off for, not coming in on time, not for staying on the TV too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, see, what's funny to me is, when I was a kid, my father did, but my relationship with my father is separated by space and time anyway. But my mother hated video games. She hated us playing them. But now, in the last 20 years or so, she's now plays games more often sometimes than I do, which is amusing to me because she would complain about them, and now she tracks releases and stuff, and she's got her own consoles and everything, and which is very strange to me now, right? I'm amused by it because she'll talk to me about video games, and in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, "Do you like them now? Was it just because you didn't want to buy them for me?" But that it's one of those things. So, with all that being said, what content other than, well, obviously words on stream, but what content do you consume on either Twitch or YouTube? Like, what do you watch when you watch anything?
You watching YouTube. Just before this, I'm going to continue to watch finish off a program when I go off. The Sidemen, which it's so weird to not think that to think that Americans and Canadians or whatever don't know necessarily the Sidemen. But I also realised that, like, I've seen Mr. Beast do massive things with, like, these are the biggest creators on YouTube, and I'm looking going, I don't recognise fucking any of them, mate.
Yeah.
What you mean is there are a load of Americans who most of them actually have less subscribers than the Brits. I watch people like Sidemen who are very interesting group. Like they do a thing called Sidemen Sunday, so they do a different program, basically a program every Sunday. They've done it for the past 2 years, every single Sunday, and they've created like their own content. How would you call it? A bit like Amazon and Netflix. They've created that as well, called Side Plus, where they bring out their own shows. They do their own podcast. They do their own behind the scenes. Do all that as well. So I watch them quite a lot. Like they've got one out today where they $100,000 buying things A to Z. So they're in teams and they've got to buy A, then B. Each one has to be in a different shop and all this kind of stuff. They're fun to watch because they're just 7 guys who are mates. There's something about that that's just really nice to watch. Because they're normal, like even because KSI is one of them, and KSI is the one person that's generally known in American places because he boxed Logan Paul and beat him and things like that. But he's one of the Sidemen, and he's normal when he's with them because it's just their mate. So I quite like that. That's quite a nice thing with them. I do consume that on there. I also they do a lot of other Sidemen reacts and things like that. But YouTube. It's a bit of everything. I like a lot of Jacksepticeye, mainly for meme time and things. And I do like, with game content that I consume on YouTube, it's very much down to the person, not the thing. But like, I got into Inscription because I watched Jacksepticeye play one episode. He's recently actually said, like, because everyone's asking him to play the rest of it on YouTube, and he said, yeah, I can't do that because the second I played it, I came offline and played the rest of it over a weekend, and I completed the game. I was addicted to it. But I didn't want to go and watch Markiplier because I don't enjoy Markiplier. I don't know. I don't think there's anything bad about Markiplier. I just cannot deal with him. So even though he was playing Inscription, so a lot of the time when it's YouTube, it's the person. It's got nothing to do with the game, but I do occasionally watch the gaming ones. Generally the horror ones. I quite like the horror ones. The horror games, not Phasmo, because it's not a horror game. It's just a shitty game everyone got into. Like decent horror games actually have like the independent horror games generally, which is, I mean, Inscription's an independent one. The ones that are a bit more fun and that you can tell they're actually getting into themselves. I do quite like watching those on YouTube, and then as well as my own content, which I of course consume. But then when it comes to Twitch, I go looking for the people. I don't go looking for like the game because I couldn't give a shit about the game, and I'm not there for the game. I'm not there for the game at all on Twitch. Like there's no, unless it's Words on Stream or Jackbox, I'm not there for it. Like I'll go and watch. Oh, not Damage is we're a member of each other's communities, and he plays Fortnite. I couldn't give 2 shits about Fortnite. I'm in there because he's a nice guy, and that's why I'm there. So I go in there. Sage Hanata, Tier, both play games I couldn't give a shit about, but I'm there because of them. So same with Wisdom of Time, same with so many different people. I'm just there because I enjoy them. They've always been kind to me, and so I continue with that. Me, especially on Twitch, more than anything, I'm there for the person, not the game. The only games that I'm actually like, oh, I want to go onto Twitch because this is on, is Words on Stream, Jackbox TV, and that's when, or like the community nights when I can actually play against the person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably because of my competitive nature. Because I know 9 times out of 10, I sound so fucking egotistical, but 9 times out of 10, I beat them.
Mm-hmm.
So I like doing that. I like winning. I can't. So,
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. So I'll go. I mean, I'm kitted out in streamer gear because of doing that one New Year's Eve. I won everything. I won t-shirt and joggers and cap and everything. So, you know, if it wins you stuff, it wins you stuff. So I do that. I do go online to do that sometimes. And beyond that, I'll go on to podcasts and just chatting streams. Like I'll go on to Just Angela is an interesting one because Just Angela used to do a podcast on mental health. Not a mental health streamer by any means. And now just does like makeup tips. But I still go in there because I enjoy Just Angela. She's actually nice. She chats quite nicely, and you know it's enjoyable to be in there. Same as Sibel TV. Could not give a fuck what she is streaming, but she's one of the original 5 Twitch streamers that basically saved my life. So that I'm in there going, okay, cool. And Among Us, actually Among Us, I do enjoy watching Among Us. Again, I like to play that because no one can figure out whether I'm lying or not, and it's fucking hilarious. Because my voice doesn't change, my tone doesn't change for that, so it's really annoying. As you made the comment the other night, I sound like a Bond villain all the time. So,
it's true.
I hope you enjoyed my attempt at voice acting with the villain things on Twitter. That second one, I did not realise what my voice sounded like when I said gods until afterwards. I was like, it sounds like I've put an effect on, and I just haven't. So yeah, I do enjoy games like that. Actually, yeah, that's one game that I think I can. Among Us is definitely a game I can get into because it's interactive and it's kind of like that. I kind of like that style of game where it's
it's very psychological, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Like I personally, I can't play it. I hate playing Among Us. I just abhor that game. But I can watch people play it because it amuses me to watch people who can't lie try, and then the people who can get away with it. I admire the skill at which they execute it. But I cannot play that game. I hate it. I played it, I think, 3 times in my entire life, and I will never play it again. Same with Phasmo. I cannot friends have hounded me for months to play Phasmo. I told them I will play it and stream it when I hit $250 on my charity for this year.
So boring. It looks so boring.
It absolutely is.
Doing the same thing over and over again and pretending you believe in ghosts. Great. I don't get it. I don't get it.
And the scenery kind of changes, kind of, sort of, but not really, because it's all dark anyway. So
I have to say, when I play Among Us, it's very funny for me because this is a trait of Americans. Good American players, or those that think they're good American players, get very irritated with me because I can find their tell immediately. And they get so frustrated, more than any Europeans I've noticed. They will get very different and very kind of, well, I fucking won anyway, so I won the last game, like I did it the other night. And one of them, it was just like, well, I won. Yeah, I don't, because I was like, I finished my task, that's why I was on camp. I don't believe you. And well, I won that already because I won like 3 games out of 4, and never died in any of the games. And I completely called them on the fact that you're not talking then, you were talking before. It's very clear. I'm not fucking losing this game. Vote for this person. Done. And I won. And they get so frustrated, and it's kind of funny for me.
Well, I mean,
I'm not. I mean, I've always said this as well. Like, and I'd say it more offline, and I say it when I'm in my mental health streams. Is I am an arsehole. I'm completely an arsehole, and when I'm not in my stream, there is no reason I can't be a full-on arsehole. So that I do that, and that's why I enjoy Among Us, because it is a good release of just kind of, I'm going to fuck with a lot of you because I kind of know how to, in the nicest possible way. So,
yeah, Tyr, it's because I can see you being a bad liar because it probably makes you uncomfortable to try to lie, and there are just people like that.
Yeah,
like, you know,
yeah, I've done it. I was in sales for 10 years, so I don't think I ever lied, but it's fun to changed the way that things can be viewed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I worked carnivals when I was a kid, and then I worked a call center, and my first job was selling door-to-door vacuum cleaners. So
Fucking hell. That's like a 1950s job. Just how old are you, Ange? That is a fucking cartoon. I'm sorry, that is a cartoon. That's a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
it was late 90s, you know. I had to drag a carpet cleaner up and down the streets of the town I was living in, offering to clean people's carpets to test it out, to show that off for $20. That was my first gig. I was all of 19. So, or actually no, I was 18 when I started that one. So, you know, yeah. It's not necessarily lying, it's just not telling the truth.
It's admitting. I mean, I was a politician as well, so, you know,
Yeah.
I was a very good politician. But yeah, I mean, I can understand. I suppose it's how people define lying as well with certain things. But yeah, no, I those kind of games I really enjoy. I mean, I used to do it to get home as well. Like when I was stuck in places, I'd do it to get my way home. Like me and my friend got stuck 300 miles away from home and had no way of getting home. So I just waited for someone at the train station, one of the staff that was old enough to be my mother, and then just talked to them as if I was in complete distress. And they, of course, wanted to look after me and my friend because we were like their kids, and so we went home for free. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's benefits, but not in a nasty way. But you know, you got to look after yourself.
No, exactly. People will do what they need to survive. Like, and it's that simple.
It's psychology as well. I mean, the easiest way to win a fight is to convince the other person they shouldn't fight you. Mm-hmm. So, and there's an element of lying in that potentially, depending on who you're fighting. I know with myself and Tyr, that's a little different because we both fought in tournaments. But on the street, you don't know whether that person's got a gun or a knife, so you might not want to actually interact with that. So,
no, exactly. All right, I have to. At this point, I have to ask the question because I know people are going to want me to ask it. It's the stereotypical, you have British person, you must ask.
That's it, right.
What's your opinion on Doctor Who?
I love Doctor Who. I'm a sci-fi fan, so yeah. I'm a Doctor Who fan. As I said before, I'm a sci-fi fan, not a fantasy fan. So I found, as I think you'll find any geek or nerd, and there is a difference, people,
yes.
will be into sci-fi a lot. So yeah, I like Doctor Who. I hated Chris Eccleston, but
do you consider Doctor Who sci-fi specifically? Because it kind of blurs the line there a little bit.
I don't think so. Because it is by definition advanced beings. I mean, that's the whole point. In fact, they even try and explain the fact as the reason that they are, although there was some jubbling with that under Chibnall, but they try and explain the fact that the reason they were able to become Time Lords is because they were in a certain part of space-time that gave them their abilities. So that there was a scientific, as much as you can call it, explanation. So yes, there was always a basis for the science within it.
Well. The reason I ask is because time travel itself, is that wholly a sci-fi concept? Do you think? Because it has been used as a device in fantasy too. Even high fantasy has had instances of time travel via magic, obviously. But there are, you know, books, series, and whatnot that have addressed time travel in a high fantasy setting.
Yeah, I mean, but by definition, time travel is a scientific endeavor. By literal definition, it's a form of physics. So you can try and call it. In my mind, you then get into the world of Rick and Morty, where he just going to go, oh, I can't do anything because everything here's magic. Fine, I'll make a scientific device that gives me magic. Like magic is always explained. You go back to that Thor explanation in Marvel. It was like, you call it magic, we call it science. It's just that we overlap. And I think that's the thing. It's just a mechanic. But I mean, if you're using magic to bring about time travel, I mean, yeah, you could go, there's a wand, but then conversely, I can also get my Oyster card or something for the underground or the subway in London, get the little chip out of it and put it onto a wand and do that and make the gates open. It doesn't make it magic. It's still science. So
I like that answer. I agree with you completely. I just wanted to see what your answer was, because that's one of those things, right? Because you talk to people about fantasy and science fiction, and you always get that push pull kind of relationship where, you know, everything's either or, but most fantasy is science fiction of a different kind in a way. It's just the setting. Because when you think about fantasy worlds, right? I'll make my argument. You think about fantasy worlds. We'll take Middle Earth for example, right? It's fantasy. It's elves and dwarves and all the traditional fantasy races. But here's the crux of my argument. We don't know in what timeline that takes place.
You're going to say it's the future?
It could be the future. Post-space travel future, like the Shannara series. That's post-apocalyptic, especially if you read the earlier books.
So the difference is, and the crux the other way would be that by definition one becomes fantasy when it doesn't mention science as an explanation for its surroundings, because there's no science. If you have, so there's the only ones that have an overlap. The only thing I can think that has an overlap, but in my mind is still fantasy, is Star Wars, because it's wizards in space, but they're on spaceships. So there's science there. So we can legitimately say that they are a turning point because there is a scientific base. There are ships in space, but they're fucking wizards. So that's fantasy. By definition, that is fantasy. They are fantasy in space. Yeah. So that in itself is almost a genre. It's why I get annoyed with people. And I get even more annoyed when they like to do it and then they find themselves very funny about it when people put Star Wars and Star Trek together. Because I think people never understand the idea that fantasy, sci-fi, comic books, all those kind of things could have literally saved someone's childhood or them in their childhood. And so like people like to take the piss out of it. You don't necessarily take the piss out of someone's culture for no goddamn reason, and you wouldn't do it because everyone goes, "Oh, it's Star Trek, Star Wars, it's the same thing." And you're kind of going, "Well, no," because if I said that the In-Betweeners movie and the Notebook were the same thing because they both deal with the idea of sex and love, technically they're the same thing because they're technically both rom-coms. Both rom-coms. If you look at it in that field, but of course they're not. One of them is a coming of age teen drama and the other one's a fucking romance one, but hey, they're the same thing. And that's why I always say, and people just gonna go, oh but no, they're not the same. I'm like, well, shut the fuck up about that then. Just because it's set in space doesn't mean anything. You set two films in England or two films in the sea or two films in America, you don't say that you don't say that Die Hard is the same as fucking JFK. Well, they're both in America. Well, they're not the same fucking film, though, are they? So
no, exactly. Well, I mean, Star Wars and Star Trek, the arguments that people have about that, especially the who would win, the Enterprise or the Death Star or a Star Destroyer, or whatever it happens to be, it always amuses me because they're two different things. And like
you need Star Trek to have a good pilot, and then they'd win.
Like
because
one is sci-fi science based, the other one is exactly wizards in space. Yes, it's set in space, but what powers the mythology of the series isn't based in science. They tried that and it failed. But
no, I mean it just doesn't. I'm sure there's probably a crossover comic, although I can't think of it. I know there's a crossover between Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Star Trek. That's fun. Star Trek.
There was a Transformers crossover too with Star Trek, I think.
Love it. And there's a DC Power Rangers as well. They do like to get around. But then I mean we've got you've got Predator and Batman that crossed over as well. I love those crossovers.
Yeah,
I've got those ones.
anyway, absolutely.
But yeah, you're right. They're in a different thing because if you had, I don't know, you got one of the most powerful people from the most powerful races from Star Trek, the Borg, and then you get Darth Vader, and Darth Vader just goes, and the fucking ship's gone. Like, so it's not really. But then you get species 8479. Which is an organic ship, which potentially you could say that it's just different things. It's like when people try and do power scaling in comic books. the power is whatever the writer wants it to be.
Yeah.
Although I did have one recently, and I did answer it on TikTok, where someone said they had Bane, and they said, name me anyone from DC, Marvel, or anime, and I'll tell you how they are completely bodied by Bane. And I just responded with the one above all.
Yeah.
Or if we want to go the other franchise, the presence, like the gods of those. How the fuck does Bane beat them? Never got a response, surprisingly. But yeah, I mean, I think yes. I mean, for me, a lot of that kind of geek and nerddom, and more geekdom, was in comic books, was in sci-fi, and I've not seen some of the newer Star Wars stuff. I've seen some of it, but I've not seen all of it. I enjoy it. Like I'll be one of the first people to go and see it, but it's fantasy. Like I can't stand Lord of the Rings.
Well,
What's the shit out of me?
I liked the first movie, and I enjoyed some of the third movie. The second movie put me to sleep.
None of it.
Every time.
I hate the fact that I have to remember it because that's the way my brain works. Like I hate it that much. I know it and I don't want to. It's just shit.
With Star Wars, I know what I'm getting, which is why I can enjoy it, because I don't have the expectations that a lot of people put on it. That said, with the newer stuff like The Mandalorian, the show on Disney Plus, that's less fantasy and more Western.
I have heard that. I haven't seen it, but I have heard that. So I might have to give that a go.
It's actually really good.
Yeah,
I definitely recommend that.
It might cross it over a little bit for me. But, I mean, let's be honest. Star Wars was successful because of one fucking thing. Darth Vader. That's it.
Yes.
I'm sorry. If you take Darth Vader out, no one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. Like, even like The Mandalorian, all that kind of stuff. Yes, he was one of the cooler characters. You take Darth Vader out, no one cares. Because, let's be honest, he is probably the only bad guy that you were rooting for.
Yes.
Like, as much as you were meant to be rooting for Luke Skywalker, no, we weren't. We were rooting for the fucking like unstoppable fucking robot man thing that just ran through everyone. That's who we're rooting for because it's Darth Vader. But people don't like to admit that. With people don't like to admit that they like the bad guy anyway.
The first two, episode 4 and 5, of the original 3, the first 2 movies, I hated Luke.
I think you're kind of
hated Luke. Probably, but like I couldn't fucking stand the Luke Skywalker character.
He's not fun until he's cocky. He's not. It's like, and this is the thing with a lot of these, and this is why I can interact with mental health in this as well. It's one of the worst things because as a society we've been told that we shouldn't like the bad guy, we shouldn't like the person that's selfish, we shouldn't like the person that's out for themselves. And you're like, no, actually, you fucking should because they're kind of showing the way. Fuck! How have I not gone into this point before? Because I literally made this point in a stream ages ago. In terms of mental health, the Sith were right.
Yes.
Because in terms of, because when you look at mental health, especially for my my kind of way of looking at it, is you turn on your light first. You can't help anybody else until you are okay. There's no way of helping anyone unless you are okay. The whole idea of the Jedi is not. It's to help everyone else and to have no emotion. Or where if you do have emotion, you can't fully interact with it and properly expand onto it. The Sith, however, you embrace it. You deal with it. You actually, through what the Sith do, have moments of mindfulness. They're probably the first people that showed us as a society the idea of mindfulness and dealing with the emotions you're feeling there, rather than going, I'm angry, I'll forget about it. No, I'm angry, I'm going to fucking do something about my anger. Yes, we don't kill all the fucking kids in a nursery, but like they did in that, but you still deal with it. So the Sith, in terms of mental health, were always right. But yeah, I mean, we look at the bad guys, we look at the I always love the fact that everyone goes, no, I don't like the bad guy, I don't like the anti-hero. Great. Why is Punisher and Deadpool two of the most popular characters in all of comics?
Yep. And Wolverine to an extent.
And Wolverine, who is like the anti-hero that tries more to be a hero. It's weird that they did that. It's like
Wolverine's Canadian. What do you expect?
Well, yeah. Like we've got to make him the good guy. but he just kills everyone, and he is the best at what he does. Like, but no, we've got to make him a good guy. So it's why in the films they made him into this kind of, it was vengeance rather than anything else, because it can't just be a bad guy. But then so is Punisher. I mean, Punisher's fucking but Deadpool is, Deadpool is amazing and brought to life by another Canadian. Although not Canadian as a character. But yeah, I mean, Deadpool's the same thing. You get those characters that you don't want to admit you like. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that they can do what we can't, and that's what we want them to do. Because everyone has, at split seconds, they have the thoughts of, I could just jab this pen through someone's eye, or I could jump onto these rail tracks. So everyone has those. They are normal thoughts. Anyone that goes, oh no, but that's no, they are normal thoughts. They are normal thoughts for neurotypicals as well as for neurodivergents. They are they're weird things, and I've forgotten what the fucking name of them is right now, but that's a normal thing. But people like Deadpool, who doesn't die, can just do those things. Wolverine can just do those things. Iron Man can just stand in front of a train. Like, they are things that we are allowed to like the anti-hero, of which Iron Man again is, because in the comic books at least, he's far more of an anti-hero. But you've got those anti-heroes that can do those things that we wish we could. How many people became armchair fucking warriors during moments of war, Russia or whatever? Like,
always
they want to be able to do it. Well, that's why we read comics. That's why we watch the sci-fi. That's why we watch anything else.
Well, I mean, Punisher is just Batman with a bad day. Really?
I mean, Batman.
Well, I mean, Batman's intellectually Batman's the great detective, but the line that separates Batman from Punisher is Batman won't kill people. Punisher will kill everybody.
Arguably, they created Batman after one bad day, and that was the one who, the Batman who laughed, who became one of the most powerful creatures in the fucking universe. So, and I know there's some people who really don't like the Batman who laughed. I love it, again, for the same reasons we've just established, because also Batman in the original classic comic books fully had a gun and shot people. There was no qualms about that whatsoever. And even since then, it's just like, no, he doesn't kill people. He'll just not save you from dying. Like, oh, you're off the edge of a building and the rope is fraying. Well, I didn't kill you. I just walked away. So it's a bit interesting.
That's why it's weird what they're doing with Punisher now. Like that. Don't even get me started there.
I mean, Punisher is it's why, because I'm a self-defense instructor more than I'm a martial arts. And I remember my wife always said, like, why don't you do choreography or anything? I'm like, because no one wants to see my choreography, because it's not 5 minutes long. It is nearer to Punisher. It's not the same as that, but it's nearer to, it's 10 seconds long and you've just really hurt someone. And that's the reality of it. So
and it doesn't look good on movies because it's too short. That's the thing with movies. Movies are elongated, and like that's one of the things, like, especially when it comes to, we'll get into it since we're on the discussion with movies. Like when it comes to martial arts movies, I guess we'll use that as a genre. I gravitate more towards Hong Kong cinema and the stylization of, especially now, Chinese martial art fantasy, because it's more, I like the elegance of it, and it's more dance than it is martial arts, because you know they're not actually going to hurt people, like, because it's so slow. Well, I mean, yes, but
you might want to ask some Hong Kong stuntman about that.
Obviously, but just the way that it's choreographed, it's more of a dance film than a martial arts movie.
Yeah, but I mean, I just like it because it becomes fantasy. Like when you, I think, because especially in terms of martial arts, I'm far more grounded in what you can do with things. And when we get into the kind of, they can now fly because they've meditated,
or run on treetops, which, interestingly, I would have loved to see something like that in Star Wars, because that would make sense. I could see Jedi doing that.
The Jedi's can't,
but they never fully embraced it. No, they can't. But they have the enhanced jumps with the Force and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, they've only ever really had, in any of the films, they've only ever really had one person that looked cool and one person that could fight. The one person that could fight was Darth Maul, because the actor
Yeah.
that played him was Ray Park, who is himself a martial artist. And the one that looked cool was Yoda, because it's fucking Sonic with a lightsaber. That's basically what it was. But yeah, no, they can fight. But yeah, no, I mean, when it comes to the Eastern martial arts films, it becomes fantasy again for me. It's just where I get turned off by it. Yes, I watch The Raid and On Back and all that kind of stuff, but I find some films problematic because I know the reality, and it's like, that's fun, but they'd be dead. Like,
yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I fucking love John Wick. I love John Wick, but part of the reason I like John Wick is that he actually gets hurt. Like, he's still like, he's still the fucking Terminator. Like, he should be dead. But at the same time, you're like, he's not just unfucking killable. He's just like, I think one of the things they said in the first film that was the best thing is that he's just he's just a thing of sheer will. And it's that idea of like sheer will takes over through the pain. And so I'm like, okay, I can give some, you know, it's quite funny when I've watched other people review John Wick as well and saying how good some of the fighters were, and they're going, no, they weren't. Fucking horrendous. What are you on about? They clearly were just choreographed and didn't train. The one person you can tell trained was Keanu Reeves, but you know, but yeah, I like the more grounded ones, or the ones that you're meant to be disbelief. Like, again, with John Wick, there's meant to be some disbelief. It's meant to basically be a video game film without the video game. That's basically what John Wick is. Whereas I find the Eastern cinema, you're meant to believe it. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
that's where I kind of
like that's why, like, that's what but I've always been sort of that fantasy kid when it comes to some of that stuff, because the storytelling, and like for me, a lot of TV, I'll use TV, but it's mostly streaming stuff now from streaming services, but it's still television, really. A lot of what I watch for television now is, if it's not Doctor Who, Star Wars, or Star Trek, it's Korean dramas. A lot of K-dramas.
Please don't tell me you like things like Squid Games as well, because I really...
No, God, no. No, God, no. I'm talking like some of the romantic comedies and the situation, some of the comedies and the dramas are really good, and the actors are really good. Like, it's insane. The current generation of Korean actors are just chewing up the scenery. Because
I don't try it because of my dyslexia, I can't read fast enough.
Yeah,
the thing. So because people have said to me, "Oh, you've got to listen to it in the original. You got to hear it," and I'm like, I can't. I have to have the dubbed because I can't read. I can't read at that speed. You know, I thought you were going to go into Squid Games. I fucking hated that. Squid Games was shit.
Oh God, no! I tried to watch the first episode, and I just turned it off. I couldn't do it.
So I watched it all the way through because I thought I'm going to give it a chance because everyone's got, and I figured out everything that was meant to be a surprise. I'm like, so this was all obvious, right? Like, that's obviously the bad guy. That's obviously this person. That's obviously, like, where's the surprise? All of it is so fucking obvious. It's so obvious. How the hell are you missing it? Like, from the very first episode, you could figure out who the bad guy was. Like, how have you missed it? And everyone's like, oh, it's so smart. Go and watch fucking Battle Royale. Battle Royale was far more fun, and it wasn't for money. So yeah, it's why I don't like the Hunger Games either, which is just a shitty Battle Royale.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I've heard of the people. I can never get into it. I think that I avoid a lot of that cinema because of the fact that I can't keep up with it, and some of them, especially a lot of the Korean stuff, don't necessarily do the dubbed, and I just can't keep up with it. And so I'm there just going, no idea.
Absolutely. But the reason why I gravitate towards it is because even though it's like a romantic comedy or a drama series, it's very grounded in what can actually happen in real life. Whereas a lot of, American, Canadian productions, they're not realistic. Let's be honest.
Friends, How I Met Your Mother, Will and Grace.
A lot of these, I mean, they're exaggerated characters, and a lot of the events are just things that would not happen in real life. And a lot of the dramas on TV, like my wife watches a lot of the, the Grey's Anatomy and all those things. Most of the characters on those shows are completely unlikable, and I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing for soap operas in England. I mean, we've got the longest running, I believe, the longest running soap opera in the world, which is Coronation Street.
Yes,
I still love. Random fact about it, which I love, is that Snoop Dogg fucking adores Coronation Street.
Yeah,
like he watches it. He's got the pub in the soap opera. He has a replica in his house, and I'm like, how the fuck did a really simple soap opera from the north of England become a popular show with Snoop Dogg?
Oh, it's super popular in Canada too.
So fucking weird to me. But yeah, it's like an EastEnders as well, which is the other kind of main soap opera. Actually, EastEnders is the one that wins the awards in England. But you're there going, but no one would live there. Like,
yeah,
it's crime-ridden and murder. No one would live there. I don't understand. Like, all the what the fuck? Why are you going to that part of London? Why would you ever go to that? Like that. That's not right. And also, how is it so clean and tidy when all this shit is going on as well? Like, no, fuck that. No, it wouldn't happen. There was a suspension of disbelief a lot in those programs. There was a lot in those programs. But yeah, I mean, I stuck to for sci-fi and comedy, or sci-fi comedy, which is Red Dwarf, which was very badly attempted in America and was fucking atrocious, but is a cult classic. I mean, I love Red Dwarf. It was amazing. They're still theoretically never been cancelled, or no, it got cancelled, but it's been brought back, and the newer version has not been cancelled, so it can theoretically still come back again, which is amazing. Like 30-40 years after it was first on TV, because all of the actors are like, yeah, we'll do it. In fact, one of them actually left gig on Coronation Street to go back and do Red Dwarf. I mean, think about the amount of money difference. They were not making money on fucking Red Dwarf. They were clearly making it on Coronation Street. The guy who plays Liz, Craig Charles. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun though. But I remember watching that, and on my TV in my room when I was a kid, I'd be wait up late at night. Right, I'm gonna watch that.
It was on late night for us too. Like, that's when I watched that, and Doctor Who, like the original run. That stuff was on late night TV on cable in Canada and the US, because, and a lot of like Monty Python was rebroadcast then. Or PBS used to have some of the British comedy shows that they could get. It wasn't very much, but like Are You Being Served was super popular.
Okay, half decent.
It's what we could get, right? I mean it's changed now. Now you can find anything.
Only Fools and Horses would be the obvious one that I think most Brits would say to go and check out.
Yeah.
If you're going to watch a British comedy, Only Fools and Horses is the one to go and watch. It's the kind of the British comedy, I think. The way they speak would be very difficult for some people to understand. But that was definitely it. I mean, it was always fun. I mean, it's weird actually, because thinking about it, Doctor Who, the very first Doctor Who I ever watched, before I then went and watched all of them, was actually the American one. When the Americans owned the show for a short period of time and brought it back with Paul McGann, I loved that. I really enjoyed the TV film. And it took them another 20 years until the show got brought back. But I actually, one of my favourite Doctor Who's is Paul McGann, because Paul McGann was Doctor Who to me. So it's really weird, because it wasn't the British Doctor that well, I mean, he was British. Paul McGann is British, but it wasn't his. It wasn't like our kind of budget that did it. It was the American one that did, which is very strange. I mean, whoever decided to not go forward with, because they owned the rights at the time. The BBC didn't own the rights. It was that short period of time. Whoever decided not to relaunch the entire series must be kicking themselves.
Probably, but at the same time, they probably wouldn't have pulled it off, because the audience wouldn't have been there for it.
Although I'm amazed the audience stayed after Christopher Eccleston. I do not. So many people love Christopher Eccleston. I thought he was fucking horrendous.
He had moments. There's a couple of moments. I'll give him that, but largely I agree with you.
the best doctors are the ones that aren't known for something else as well, I find. And I think he brought. I always find that because he's always lauded as being the one that didn't cause the issue when he was on Doctor and it was everyone else. I'm like, yeah, I kind of feel like it was probably you. But
Yeah.
like the better doctors were always the ones that no one knew who the fuck they were. Like, who knew who Matt Smith was? Who knew who David Tennant was? Like,
The Harry Potter kids.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, because you don't come with any predisposition of what they are. You know, you don't think, oh, they're going to be this way or that way. Like, you might have seen him on one of the shows, like the newest one. He's been on Sex Education, but other than that, no one's really knows who he is. And if you don't have Netflix, you won't know who he is at all. So it's that he's going to be a good one. Actually, when I saw him at an award show, he was wearing an outfit, and I just went, "That looks like a crazy enough outfit to be a Doctor Who outfit. Just wear that." But you know, that was always the good thing about it with the Doctor. But you know, I really didn't like you can't skip 9 because it's still plot and everything. But I also couldn't stand Catherine Tate as the comic relief. I don't find that woman funny at all. She just isn't funny. She's just annoying. She's just annoying. I don't understand that way of comedy when the person is just annoying or like, why are they funny? How is that fucking funny? That's not. There's nothing to it.
Well, I mean, I could have watched an entire season of David Tennant or Matt Smith with John Barrowman. I could have watched an entire season of The Doctor and Captain Jack.
I want them to keep bringing him back because, of course, he was brought back for like 2 episodes. I'm like, no, bring him back again.
Yeah,
like,
and Captain he's an Jack, absolute delight in person. Absolute delight.
The Scottish Canadian, which is a weird fucking mix, because he has a Scottish accent. And unless he's been in Canada for too long, and then he's one of those people that just kind of molds into whatever. But when he's in Scotland, he gets a properly Scottish, because he was born in Scotland, so he's got a proper Scottish accent. But it sounds so fucking weird. I loved him as Captain Jack. I enjoyed those. They are fun. But I didn't like certain ones. But then again, with the Doctor, it comes back to something I said earlier. My favourite times for the Doctor are when he's angry. And I think it goes back because it's I've talked about this on my channel before, is that everyone has an emotional default. Everyone has a default of how they are. Now, a lot of people, because that's what society has told them, will believe that it's happiness, or we're taught that it's meant to be happiness. Like, your default, you should just be default happy. And it's like, that's not how human nature works. Nope. So everyone's got a different default, and my default is anger and upset. And that's why I find it funny when people come into my stream work, because I'm like, because they don't expect me to be the way I am because I'm a mental health streamer. So they don't expect the angry Brit and the one that will tell them to go fuck themselves if they troll me. Because they're just like, wait, what? Like, you can't be that. Yes, I fucking can. And so that's why I really enjoy the Doctor when he's angry. Like, the obvious quotes with Matt Smith on his first episode when he got angry. It's like, when he told him Colonel Runaway, which is again the best line. It's not that, it's the bit afterwards. Like, the anger of a good man is not something to fear. Good men have too many rules. Good men don't need rules. Today is not the day to find out why I have so many. So many of those. And again, David Tennant with the same thing. When it's that switch. It's that, oh, I'm happy and lovely. I'm going to destroy your entire fucking planet. Like, it's that. Yeah. I really enjoyed that switch, because to me and it's why I think I enjoy Kirk more than Picard. Although the later Picard, I think, got better because there's more humanity. I could see myself having that response. Like, Picard would always be like, no, we're going to be diplomatic. But Kirk would just be like, I'm going to fucking knock you out. I'm like, that's what a real person would do. Like, that's the actual response of someone. But obviously, with Picard, they were trying to be more like, no, we're an advanced race. But I always liked that about the Doctor and some of the Star Trek ones. Is like, I want the person that seems the most relatable. I want that in any... And I think that, again, this comes back to the mental health way of dealing with it, because a lot of us found fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, or video games, as an escape. But at the same time, I think in that escape, you need something that you connect with. And so for me, I always liked something where I'm just like, okay, I get angry. This person gets angry as well. Okay, I'm not that bad for getting angry. Like, there's some relation there. Like, I can understand that this person is angry, and I get why that person is angry, and cool, right, I that's fine. So I was always like that. So I always love those characters that will just like switch. I'm very. That's why some of my film choices are very simplistic. Because I'm like, no, I like the person that goes in vengeance. Because there's always a film critic that wants to go, oh yes, but this is just simple violence, and I'm like, yeah, but that's what you would do. That's the actual reality. Like, yes, okay, in reality, most of them would die immediately because they have no kind of training, but that's what most people would do. The lone wolf or whatever is what you would want to do. The idea of fighting the Gorn on a fucking random planet is what you would do because you're put in that situation. So I always liked that, and it's why I always liked the Doctor with that. That's why I don't think Jodie Whittaker's done a bad job. I think it's the writing of Jodie Whittaker, but I also don't think they gave her enough anger. I think she's always been just too happy and calm. None of the rest of them have. None of them. Paul McGann wasn't. If we look at the newer, since the 90s onwards, Paul McGann had his angry moments. Christopher Eccleston certainly did, especially with the Daleks. David Tennant absolutely did. I mean, he there's one episode literally devoted to the fact that he ran away from people so that he didn't destroy them in horrific ways. We have then Matt Smith in his opening fucking episode basically telling an entire race of people to run. Then Peter Capaldi. And then the War Doctor, who is the fucking War Doctor.
Yes.
And then Peter Capaldi.
John Hurt was magnificent.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Peter Capaldi, who literally in the first episode is just angry and insane. And then we went to Jodie Whittaker, who was just like, no, I'm a happy northerner. I'm like, I don't entirely like. Everyone goes, oh, people just don't like it because she's female. I'm like, yeah, there probably are some people like that. But I also think the writing and the fact that she's not allowed to be angry. Like I feel like there's actually more sexism the other way. Like they've assumed that they can't make her angry because she's female, and that would sound weird.
Yeah.
It's like when I was teaching. When I was teaching, they always told the female teachers not to scream and not to shout because they would sound shrill. I think there's that kind of inbuilt sexism inbuilt with the writing. Because why can't she be angry? Like she's still the Doctor. Exactly. She's the oldest Doctor. She's seen all the shit from before, but she very rarely gets, if at all, actually angry. Like in some of the situations she's been in, if it had been Matt Smith or Capaldi or Tennant, they'd have fucking lost their minds. They'd have gone, right, I'm destroying everything. I mean, again, John Hurt, in the original version of Timeline, destroyed his own people and the Daleks. Like, that's what brought on one of the best lines from Matt Smith. When it's he comes across the person that takes over the TARDIS, it's like, fear me, I've killed many Time Lords. Fear me, I killed all of them. It's but yeah, they fucked up with Tony Woodcock. I don't even know what started that conversation, but I go off on tangents. That's what podcasts are for.
That's the entire point of this podcast. Is we start somewhere, where we end up is the biggest part of the fun. And I mean, I can talk sci-fi and Doctor Who all day because it's one of those legacy series that I watched when I was a kid, the black and white, and then when it reintroduced, I went back and rewatched everything, and then going forward. And, it's one of those things, along with Star Wars and Star Trek. Like, when I was a kid, the original Star Trek I would watch with my grandfather. It was a ritual. And with my great-grandmother, we'd watch it, along with Night Court and, all those Perry Mason and Murder, She Wrote. Those intrinsically shows that, at least for Canadian and American kids, were part of what our parents watched, or grandparents, whatever. Those are key memories. So, Doctor Who's become that staple for a lot of people.
I think Doctor Who is what happens when the Brits write Batman.
Yeah.
Because his character is literally that. The very first incarnation, again, in the comics for Batman and in the program for Doctor Who, they both killed. I mean, Doctor Who never actively killed, but he picked up a massive rock to kill someone because they were closing them down. As a good person, there was no issues with that. And then they've grown into this idea of don't use guns, never use guns, don't kill, don't do this, and yet everyone fears them, and the entire fucking universe fears them. I mean, it's weird. There's still one. I'm going to have to try and say this without actually crying, because it generally tears me up when I think about it. There's one bit when in Doctor Who that actually made me cry a few times after my wife died, and that was when the Doctor died. It was that one bit where it's River Song saying those that it's a million voices all saying, "Of course we'll help." And there's one line where he says, you know, because he says, you know, everyone's, oh God, what is it? Yeah, where he's talking about the fact that, you know, we can't, everyone will be in pain, and, you know, everyone will hurt. And River Song's just like, no one more than me. It's like more than the entire universe. It's like, yes. And it's always that kind of, like, I can even feel it now. Like, there's that one bit where I've kind of cried to a few times as well since I've watched it. That's one that over and over I've seen, because it's that kind of, it's a weird bit of, if you actually take the scene as it is, it's a very non-relatable scene, but at the same time very relatable. Like, they're stuck in some kind of fucking split time and space relation where he's marrying the grown-up daughter who's older than his companion. Like, it makes no fucking sense, but at the same time, it's just one person that loves someone else and doesn't want to let them go. Like, that's the basis of it. And so, there's a lot of relation to it, I think.
Well, I mean, Doctor Who's very good at moments. Right? I mean, you've got the journeys and the destinations and monsters of the week, but there are always those key moments that they usually hit in a series that will define that actor and that character, which is what I find interesting about the character of the Doctor, is that every actor who plays it makes the character their own, but keeps quirks and the reminiscent bits and pieces of the past performances find their way in, whether it's, you know, a little bit of outfit or a memory or just something that gets said. But the character is also constantly evolving and mixing in that past with the present, moving towards the future. That I think is what is really what draws people to that character and to that franchise, is because we see this constantly evolving person who's hundreds of years old, but still also the eternal child.
Billions now.
Well, yes.
Because of being caught in that prison. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who, I think he's one of the few characters in all of sci-fi that people would want to be as well.
Or travel with.
You travel with, you tend to die or get left somewhere.
There are risks in everything, okay?
Okay. Yeah, not if you're the Doctor though. You have a plan.
True.
But I mean, I think if you look at a lot of like sci-fi, there's always, you very rarely want to, like Star Trek. Yeah, it's a great idea, but they're under constant threat by the Q or 8472 or the Borg or the Klingons occasionally. Whereas like Doctor Who, he's under constant threat, but there's never a time in which you go, yeah, the Doctor's not. It's the Doctor. It's like moments when, like, which is still probably one of the funniest lines, but at the same time, you're rooting for a bad guy again. Is in Doctor Who when it's the Daleks meet the Cybermen. And it's just like, you know, how many are you? 4. You would kill them Cybermen with 4 Daleks. We would kill them with 1 Dalek. And then there's one bit where like Rose just says to them, but it's the Doctor, and they all just move back. She's like, 10 million Cybermen, no problem. 1 Doctor. And it's that idea that you're unstoppable. Like, you put fear into the bad guys, and you always have the answer, which is, again, going back to the line I use a lot in terms of mental health is the idea of control. And the biggest problem and the reason for mental health in every facet, I think, always comes down to one thing, and that's control, a lack of control. So if you give people, especially those that are neurodivergent, the idea of being this person who is always in control, even when they're not in control, they're in control. Even when they're completely out of it and they're having manic episodes, seemingly, I mean, that's how the character comes forward sometimes, they're still in control. They're never not in control. It's always that idea, which is why I think Rick and Morty became popular as well, actually, because Rick is this kind of Ubermensch kind of idea as well of always being in control of, like, it doesn't matter, I'm a fucking genius, fine. Like, I think that's why these things become popular, because everyone can just, if you have the idea of being, you will be in control. There will never be a time in which you're not in control. That's really an amazing thing to think if you're suffering as well in terms of mental health. If you have any kind of neurodivergence, if you suffer from depression, well, I think it's always the idea of not being in control or that you've done something. Whereas if you're the doctor, it doesn't matter. It's all good. You know, you can solve everything.
Yeah. And from a mental health look with the doctor, especially in the anniversary special, when the war doctor is looking at Matt Smith and David Tennant and just is like, you know, sand shoes and chinny and just taking himself apart, basically. Like, the character is can self-reflect and make fun of himself.
Yeah. He also looks back in like horror at himself as well a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
like, this is what I become.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. It's, you know, what happened to me. It's, and there's a great line actually from the companion Olivia, what's her name, because she makes a comment that to John Hurt about the fact that he's young, even though the other two are like, you look so young. It's in the eyes. You still, it's all yet to come for you. Like, it's that weird breakdown of what a decision, which we know the decision, what that decision does to the doctor, and how that changes the way he is, because it's, you know, there's something she just sees in his eyes that makes him so much older because of the pain that he's seen. I mean, one of the best speeches was Capaldi, when he's against the Zygon, and, you know, Zygon's talking about the fact that he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand the idea of war, and it's just like, I mean, weirdly, that speech is actually quite a bad way of dealing with mental health, because he basically says you take hold and you push it down so that nobody ever has to feel it again, which is not the way to do it, ladies and gentlemen. The Sith are right. Engage with your mental health. But he does, you know, there's emotion. There's a lot of emotion in the Doctor in that scene. There's a hell of a lot of emotion put forward. And this idea of, you know, and I think that's something actually in the mental health sphere as well, is that, and I feel it sometimes, is that when people are younger, and I think this goes for any older person, we will never understand any of the trials and tribulations of younger people. We can pretend, but we never will, because we're not.
No. That
doesn't mean we don't know something about the things that people have gone through, because we may suffer as well. And that doesn't mean we're trying to say that doesn't matter for them, or that our solutions will always be the answer. But it doesn't mean that we haven't felt that, you know, especially when I have some people in that are just, you know, when I have the line of, like, I'm done, from a lot of people, I'm like, and I've been there as well. And it's like, but you haven't. And I'm like, yes, I have. And there's definitely a thing of that from the Doctor. And I think that scene where he's just like, oh, I don't understand. You know, of course I understand. Of course I understand. I'm, you know, you think I don't understand. You know, this fun little thing, you call this a war. And it's like, he goes on to that whole thing that breaks it down.
Well, I mean, you can't, we always talk about how everybody feels differently in different circumstances. Understanding doesn't mean it's the same thing. You can understand something without it being exactly the same.
Well, I don't believe in empathy.
Especially when it comes to emotions, right? Or situations. What two people can go through the same situation, their feelings could be completely different, but they can still have an understanding of the situation itself. And none of us have the same answers.
No, it's why I have big issues with the idea of empathy. Because it goes back to a point I made earlier. Empathy is what people want there to be. Because it would be so much easier if empathy was real, and we could take on the emotions of others. It's bullshit. I'm sorry. You may have just lost a couple of viewers for that. But it's bullshit. People can want to be like, oh no, but I do. I can feel like when they're angry, I can feel that anger. Like, you can fucking see their face. You can feel
it's body language.
Yeah, there's a body language you're coming off of. It's the same relation as a fucking dog knowing when you're angry. It's just the way somebody is. I find the idea of empathy so patronizing because depending on how some people describe empathy differently, and I'm like, but what you're describing is not the definition of empathy. Empathy effectively is saying that you can fully understand. You know, the idea of being empathic, and we go to Star Trek again. The empath, Diana Troy, the whole idea is that she can feel their emotion, literally like a psychic, and it's just bullshit, and it's patronizing as fuck because it's just one person saying, "I understand fully, I know exactly what you're going through," and it's like, no, you don't, and you have to know that you don't. That's why the way I speak to different people is different. Some people I am full on tough love, fucking do this now. Some people I'm nicer to. Some people I will talk to in a completely different way about something completely different. Some people I'll use more analogies because people are different every time, and I'm never going to know straight away how to interact with that person.
Well, nothing exemplifies this like for me when it comes to parenting, especially with my daughters, right? There's a lot of things that they're going to go through that I just will never understand. Right? Like whether it's, growth and hormones and menstruation and all those things. Like I understand from a technical point, the mechanics of how it works, but the emotional side, I'll never understand that. I'll never feel that way. So I have to talk and listen to them to learn how they're feeling about it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I can't relate to it. If I started bleeding from an orifice for a week, I'm going to a doctor because that ain't natural.
No, exactly. Yeah.
But, for them, it's a part of, it's going to, when it starts, it's part of their life and will be.
Yeah.
So,
I've always been turned off to the idea of empaths. And I've had them around me, and I had one that I've never wanted to put someone through a fucking wall as much in my life. Because I had someone that talked about it after I lost my wife, and I'm like, you really don't want to be around me right now. Like again, my default is anger and upset. Don't just fuck off. And so it was, and that's why I really appreciated actually at the time after my wife died, was I appreciated people that just completely said, I don't have a fucking clue. Those, I appreciated them so much more. Like, so when it happened, I was the instructor for one of the universities nearby. I was their self-defense instructor, and I'd got to know, I was becoming friends with a couple of my students, and they basically just took me out for a drink. They just turned up at my house and just went, "We're taking you to the pub," and then encircled me, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" They just went, "We know you're angry, we know you're upset, and we don't know how to stop you if somebody pisses you off. We don't know what to do, so we're going to buy you drink and make sure that no one fucks with you." And I was like, probably the best idea, I suppose. It's just, it was a weirdly nice thing, but said in a kind of in a kind of a loving and fearing way. It was a very strange thing to do, but it was.
So in that moment, you were the doctor?
Yeah, but it was that kind of, because I just like, what you don't. They just went, well, we don't know. Like, I suppose it makes sense because I was their instructor, and they were like, we don't know how to fucking what to do with you if you get angry. Like, what the fuck are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And so they basically just encircled me, and I saw it happen a few times. Whenever anybody would come near, like any drunk, they would just literally go, nope. And it was quite nice, but inbuilt with it was the fact that they actively just said, we have no fucking idea. We have no idea what to do. So we're going to just straight up tell you we have no idea and just give you drink. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. I much prefer that to any of the empathy bullshit where someone's going to pretend they know what I'm going through. Like, no, you fucking don't. You just fucking don't. Not at all. It's just not a thing. It's you have absolutely no idea, even if you've lost someone. Because, and in the same way that I don't know how someone else feels. I have no idea what my mother-in-law is going through. She lost a daughter. In the same way that she has no idea what I'm going through, losing a wife. We don't know. everyone deals with grief a different way, and that was just, you can't possibly understand what the other person's going through.
Well, I think part of it comes down to this is a subject I actually wanted to approach with you. Is one of the things that I have, especially watching the way my kids, the way what they're taught in school and things like that, and the education system here. And I think about the education I had, because I'm a product of, I spent most of my elementary school years in Canada. My junior high years were spent in America, and then I came back for the rest of high school in Canada. But even both education systems, there's things lacking. And what we focus on now, and I see this with my kids, a lot of things that should be taught, both, I'm going to get flack for this no matter how I say it. All right. And I hear you, YouTube kids. I can already see you furiously typing on your keyboards. Yes. When it comes to emotional education, a lot of that relies on parents. But at the same time, kids don't want to hear what parents have to say when it comes to emotions. They really don't. Like, I can give my kids advice on all kinds of subjects, and I can try to teach them about things, whether it's how to handle their anger, dating, whatever it is. They're probably not going to listen to me.
No.
It's that simple.
I think we had this conversation, me, you, and Rect offline, it's the only person that gets through to people is the cool uncle.
Yeah. The cool uncle, or the inspiring teacher, or, their sensei at their martial arts, or whatever it is. And, we need to teach people emotional intelligence and the art of listening.
Yes. Well, active listening, yes.
Yes. And like in school and at home, school and parenting need to work in partnership. That's the biggest thing. There's something that's starting to change here, is that now teachers are starting to communicate more with parents and saying, this is what we've noticed. Have you noticed this? And coming up with strategies, especially when children are struggling with certain subjects, and coming up with a combined plan to help them meet those challenges that they might be facing, whether it's math or reading or whatever it is. We're starting to get that change here, but it's very lacking. And especially when it comes to relationships and emotions.
And the biggest problem is when either side thinks they know what the other one does. So when teachers try and be parents, when parents try and be teachers, that's when it goes wrong. LA is the obvious one for that, where you listen to the parents. No. As someone who was a teacher, no. Your mum and dad do not know this subject as well as I do. They just don't. Yeah. And for any of those YouTube parents out there, fuck you too. You don't. There's a reason I taught the subjects. I taught various different subjects. My main thing being in I suppose you'd call it civics or whatever in the North America, but but then I also taught A-level politics and A-level law, and degree and master's degree in politics and political theory. Having been a you don't know more. So, and in the same way that we have, as teachers, have no idea what that kid is going through at home, and that's why emotional intelligence does have to be taught in school, but at the same time, I think it can become inappropriate if we try and take it on too much, because then I haven't been a fucking teacher for donkey's years, but it's what and yes, I am younger than I look.
You're still teaching, even if it's mental health on Twitch. You're still teaching in a way.
I'm a private tutor as well, so I do that. But we know that there's certain people who can get through to people easier. I mean, the easiest way to describe it actually is tomorrow I'm tutoring a kid, and for his A levels, which is 16 to 18 in the UK, and I'm teaching him, one of the subjects is higher chemistry. His father, I know when I worked at university, because he is a lecturer in forensic investigation and criminology. His father knows chemistry better than me, but I also know chemistry to a higher level than the kids do. And I'm not talking about the next page. I mean, I know it to university level because it was in with some of my studies for environmental science. So I have it to that level, which is 2 or 3 steps above the child. But the issue was that they weren't getting through to them. And I came in and immediately realized that the kid was autistic. Immediately. Like it took 2 lessons, I think. And I just went, you need them tested. And so me as a tutor, I've had that ability to teach them because I am a teacher, so I have that level, or I was a teacher, so I have that level, but I also have the connection of being able to connect in a more emotional way because I'm neither a teacher nor a parent. I'm in between. I'm almost like an older brother to a point, because, you know, I'm a teacher that lets him swear. I'm a teacher that we can randomly talk about stuff, you know, so that's where it becomes problematic because I think emotional intelligence and talking about your emotions in any way does require the child to feel at ease in a way that I don't think all schools, especially not in England anyway, would be able to feel comfortable in. You know, when you're fully, you know, these are things that if you had conversations with teachers could potentially get the teacher fired.
That's true.
You know,
and maybe not intelligence is the word, but maybe emotional awareness might be the better term I'm seeking.
Yeah, potentially. It's just.
But
the biggest issue for me, I think, would be hockey players in Canada, American footballers in America, and rugby players in England, because there's a gravitas to those people that means they will never tell you how they feel, because if they do, they lose their "I'm the big man on campus." That's you know, that's what happens. You know, those are the 3 sports for those 3 countries where that person is the jock. You know, they are the man. So it's you might have the person, you know, conversely, the hockey player in England would probably be the person that wouldn't mind talking about things. But it's started to move more into maybe football doing it, but rugby, no, you'd never get someone. Same as American football in America, you wouldn't get the fucking quarterback.
Hockey is starting to change in Canada, which is funny. When everybody talks about Canada, they always bring up hockey, even though it's not our national sport.
Well, no, but people bring up cricket for England, and it's not even fucking close.
Right? Like,
we don't care about it.
Like, I mean, yes, we have a lot of hockey fans in Canada, but our national sport is lacrosse.
Yeah, although you don't have the best world player, do you? America does.
Yeah, well.
But
right?
I mean, yeah, you're quite right. But you just have very violent games. I mean,
yes.
What's a lacrosse ball go at? Well over 140 miles. And I mean, a hockey match is what happens when a fight breaks out and suddenly it's a hockey match. I mean, those are the things. I mean, it's good to hear that hockey's changing, but I think when you always have a sport or something where someone is given a higher status for not being emotional, that's the problem in schools that we're always going to face. Because then there's always, as there always has been, a relation between being the geek and the nerd and them being the ones that are connected with their emotion. Because they're allowed to be. You know, the geek and the nerd, they're allowed to be.
Interestingly, at least from my childhood, it was that interesting thing where the geeks and the nerds were just as emotionally repressed as the jocks and the sports kids were, because we were compartmentalizing the bullying and whatnot that was happening to us, and we just kind of blocked off the world and kept ourselves contained, whereas it was the same on the other side, really, just for different reasons.
I was in a very strange position at school, because I mean, I moved school several times, but I was in a weird position because of the fact that I am a broad-shouldered 6'2" martial artist, have been since I was 4 years old.
Yeah,
I was the one the bullies didn't pick on, but I was also in all the top sets. I played chess. I was. I mean, I literally by my teachers at some points got asked if I could walk back my friends who were the other geeks and nerds, because like, can you walk them back because they're getting bullied? And then I'd meet people who I knew that were the ones that were bullying him, and just go, oh, just fuck off, lads. So I was in a weird position when I was at school, because I was I think I was emotionally repressed because of the fact that I didn't have a position. Like I was
Yeah.
I I was the nearest to those Hollywood films where, you know, the jock that actually has a brain. That was me. Because
Mm.
I was on the school team for football. I was the one they kept trying to make play rugby, and I fucking refused because I hate that sport. I was the one that played basketball. But then I played basketball after I finished playing chess, and I
Mhm.
would have discussions in my lunch break about girls and sex and things like that. And then I'd also have discussions about the meaning of life. So
Yeah.
I was never,
Well,
I
I
was
mean,
never really open on anything because I was like, I didn't fit. Like when I first went to the school, I remember when I first went into the like my secondary school because we didn't have middle school as where I am. It's just primary
mm,
and secondary. And
yeah.
I remember being in secondary school, but I was bigger than all the bullies and stronger than most of them. And so you'd have this guy like hazing or beating up the new kids, and then they'd be just become along, and I was like, no, and they just look
Mhm.
at me, okay, mate, yeah, sorry, but so
Yeah.
I got all the shit and all the good from both sides. It was very weird, it was very
Yeah.
strange being in that position. Um,
Well, that's the
yeah,
thing. Like in school, I was, in the nerd geek groups and hanging out with in the English class at lunch and playing the tabletop RPGs at lunch and things like that. But then when I left school, I was going to gymnastics practice and I was in gymnastics for 12 years.
yeah,
And when gymnastics was done, I was playing volleyball for fun. And I was playing American football at school and lunch and floor hockey. And so I was playing in the sports, but outside of that, I was always in the nerdy things every other time. So it was always very weird because it's the same kind of thing. A lot of the people I was playing sports with were bullying the other nerdy kids.
yeah,
And I'm just kind of sitting there going, why?
yeah.
Just why?
It was really really weird because like I remember they were quite good friends of mine, the bullies of this one kid. They were actually quite good friends of mine when I realised because I was walking them home because I'd been asked, and then they come up and I was like, oh for fuck's sake, guys, just don't, like, I've been asked to look after him, fuck off. And that was it. He never got bullied again, purely because of the fact
Yeah.
that I knew. But yeah, it was so weird doing that. But I yeah I had a weird kind of crossover between the two. I never
Mhm.
fit into that any of those groups because I was also the angry kind of loner as well at the same time. So I was, yeah, I did not fucking fit at school. I did just
Yeah.
not fit at school. I would have been the one that I thought was a fucking shooter in America. Like I did not fit. But it's very strange. It's yeah, I so emotional intelligence in schools I think is a good idea. The logistics of making
But
it
hard
happen,
to execute. Yeah.
because you get one kid that's in all the groups. What happens then? Because of how bad sport is at dealing with it. You have one that has abusive parents. What do you do then?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, for instance, when I was teaching, I used to, year nines were the year group that everyone hated. It's because it was like they were old enough to not be excited by school anymore, but not quite old enough to care about the outside world. So
Hmm.
everyone hated them. But I just went in there and basically bribed them. I went in and said, look, if you're good, you get a tick, you get a smiley face. If you're really good, I'll give you some sweets. Like, I literally come to the staff room and I'd be like, there's some bags of sweets. And if you're really, really good, you get sweets and a letter home telling your parents how good you've been. If you're bad, you get a sad face. If you're really bad, you get lunchtime detention. If you're really, really bad, you get after school. And if you're really, really, really bad, you get a letter home stating how bad you've been. And of course, the kids that you knew immediately were getting abused or getting something at home were the ones that immediately changed,
Yeah.
because they'd be like, I do not want a letter going home. But if I get a letter going home that says I'm good, it means that my parent, like my dad or whoever, does not have an excuse to beat me. Like,
Hmm.
you knew immediately. I saw the kids who were the worst kids, who people would try and make them do something like, no, I don't want a letter home. And suddenly they were the best kids. So you also have to then deal with them, and it's a different way of interacting with them. Like I was one of the few teachers who, like, a lot of the kids got on with. I was a very chalk and cheese as a teacher, though. It's like they either loved me because of the fact that I was one of those teachers. Just guys, do your fucking work. Like
Hmm.
like I will argue with you. Fine, I will have those arguments, but I will bring you back on the same subject. or you didn't like me for the exact same reasons because you wanted the structure and everything else. So I was very chalk and cheese like that. But yeah, we had the kids that you knew were being abused or something, and so you also have the issue with them and emotional intelligence. So the problem isn't necessarily in our schools. I think the problem is society. But
Well, yes.
that's where we need to change. We need to change the way that everyone looks at things. Like, for instance, if somebody starts a fight with a guy, we need society to teach everyone, schools to teach everyone that the immediate response should not be, well, I'll fight them, and that if you don't fight them, you're a wimp. Or no, but I have to protect it. It's like, no, you don't. Like, why the fuck isn't... I always love the fact that in a lot of beat 'em up films, you get Sun Tzu as the kind of... They'll always use Sun Tzu, Art of War. Yes, this is why we're so good. I'm like, literally one of the quotes from Sun Tzu is the best way to win a war is to not fight. Like, if you're going to use those fucking quotes, use one of his best ones, which is literally not to fight. So, yeah, I think there's a societal change that needs to happen. But we don't do societal changes because we have, World Mental Health Day, which is a pile of shite. World Mental Health Day or Mental Health Week or whatever, we just lie. We pretend that we care and then do nothing about it. So,
Yes.
And schools do it as well. Schools and universities do it. I mean, one of the university I used to work for, I have called them out several times. Canterbury Christchurch University, if you'd like to know. Adam Parsons. Hello. I am the one. I worked for you. Come for me, you silly fucks, if you really want to, Christchurch. But you're useless and you know you are. This is a place that had, for their mental health day for their staff, had several tables and a fucking teepee that had pictures up, and that was their way of dealing with mental health for staff. For students, they had a bouncy castle, and considering the fact they definitely had people in the university that suffered from anxiety, from social interactions, from ADHD and ASD, had fucking flash mobs in a place that meant people could not escape from. They could not get out of the cafe because the flash mob was there, and they basically boxed in those that were suffering from conditions like that, and then didn't know what the problem was. And I'm like, okay, cool. So when schools and universities do it, that's kind of what happens. And they don't know what they're doing either. They have no fucking idea. So I think we need to make
it's an education problem from start to finish.
Yeah, we need to make it so that mental health is actually recognized as being something you should study, be something that you should understand, because at the moment it still isn't. As much as we pretend it is, and we have these mental health days, it isn't. You will not. Put it this way: how many parents who want their kids to be doctors would be happy if that doctor was a doctor of psychiatry?
That's true.
It's still not seen as a real thing. How many people still go, well, yeah, but it's not that real, is it? Or, well, is it really that bad? Because even people that say that generally suffer from mental health issues themselves. But they were indoctrinated by the same bullshit by their parents, so they've gone on to believe it. I mean, how many people's grandparents were in the fucking First or Second World War that almost definitely suffered from PTSD? They were the quiet ones in the corner that never talked about the war, and everyone go, oh yeah, they're so stoic, they're not talking about the war. No, because it's fucking night terrors every goddamn night. That's their interaction with it. They're the stoic person in the corner because they're living with the hell of seeing their friends killed in front of them. They have no, they're suffering from it, but they just pretend they're not, and then tell you that you're not, you're not worthy of understanding your own mental health. So it needs to be a societal change. And honestly, I don't think we're there even within the next 50 years. I just don't. I don't think we've changed.
Well, considering what we've seen over the course of the last 2 years with the pandemic, I'm inclined to agree with you.
But when people like Piers fucking God, I can't even bring myself to say his name. Piers Morgan, the synaptically inept fucking apparent journalist, when he still gets TV shows, when he still gets all this kind of stuff, then that's because we have World Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Week, World Mental Health Month, which is all the same. It's just whatever anybody wants to give the money to.
Yeah.
That's for this month. And what happens the second it's not this month? Oh, no, they've just dropped out of this because they're not good enough. That's all it is. Oh, no, I don't believe that they've really got this wrong with them. That's the second it ends. That's what happens. And journalism is that the rest of the goddamn year. In fact, it's that even during the year sometimes. During the month sometimes. And people just, that is what people then watch. People take that on. And until we actually say, no, fuck you, like, why do we keep, I mean, I use Piers Morgan a lot. And the reason is because he's one of the most visceral anti-mental health people out there. And we still keep giving the fucker a job.
Yeah.
Why? And then he keeps going on about, the idea of cancel culture. And I'm like, well, yeah, the problem with you saying that cancel culture has caused you so many problems is it keeps giving you a job, you fucking moron. Like, you've not done too badly out of it, considering you keep saying you've been cancelled. Why won't you fuck off then? I thought when we cancelled something, they're meant to be gone. Like, I really hate that people go, oh, yeah, I've been cancelled. Really? Because you had no platform before, and now you do. So how the fuck have you been cancelled exactly? Like, fuck you. It's the big.
We won't see real change in regards to mental health until there's money in it.
Yeah.
For society as a whole, until there's money involved, you're not going to see much work.
Yeah. I mean, even in progressive nations, it's not. I mean, Norway, for instance, which is great for so many things, it's fucking awful for mental health a lot of the times, depending on what you're suffering. The Netherlands, Denmark, which is the second happiest place on earth to live after Canada, is fucking awful for mental health sometimes.
Canada's only the happiest place to live because we legalized marijuana.
Nothing about Canada.
Because our mental health system is shit.
But it's better than America's. So
it's a poke in the eye with a carrot, but
It's. I mean, I have massive issues with the mental health kind of things here, but then I look at America and go, oh, okay. And like I don't like the stuff that's the automatic thing here, but at least it's automatic and you get some. Okay, fine. But yeah, I mean, we all have problems with it, even the developed nations. And so, yeah, I mean, some of the best places within the UK is Scotland, like in the middle of fucking nowhere in Scotland. There's a van. There's like a van that goes around and they do a lot of stuff. They're quite good. And Ireland is not too bad. And I believe Germany is pretty good. But outside of that, like the world just doesn't listen to people with mental health issues. It just doesn't. And we pretend they're not real or we pretend they're something else. Everybody is immediately crazy. I say crazy a lot because I also define myself as that. So again, any cancel culture people, go fuck yourself. It's what I define myself by. Unless you're going to define yourself by it as well, you have no reason to come at me. And if you're defining yourself by it, therefore, why don't you cancel yourself and fuck off? Anyway. And
that's a clip.
Why don't we then deal with it in that way when we're trying to deal with mental health? If we're gonna call everyone crazy, okay, fine, but then let's deal with that. Let's not just go, you're crazy, so it doesn't matter, because that's what happens. When we get shooters or something, well, they're crazy, so it doesn't matter. It's fine. No. Let's do something then. Let's actually deal with.
That's why it matters.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody is somebody's suffering, if somebody's going through hell, let's fucking deal with it. I mean, we had someone who was a member of the fucking royal household, and we still didn't listen to them. Fucking royal households. The royal household in England, which is the largest royal household in the... Well, no, it's not the largest in the world. That'd be Saudi Arabia. But the most well-respected. Yeah. And no one listened to it.
Yeah.
Journalists, again, Piers Morgan being the main one, just went, they didn't believe her. Why? I mean, why? Because she took away the only royal that we actually liked. I swear to God, that's all it is. Because Harry was the only one that anyone liked, because he was the only one that pretended he wasn't a royal. Because again, America and everything like that, we don't like our royal family. In fact, no, we don't care enough to not like our royal family. We couldn't give two shits. You can have them if you want. You seem to care for them more. But like the fact that you can be technically, that, and yet nothing, no change. There's no change in how we looked at mental health at that point. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing happened. The only thing that happened is Piers Morgan lost his job. and then got another one saying exactly the same shit about someone else.
Yeah.
You know, so
Nothing
when
changed.
society's result is that, well, it just doesn't listen. You know, there's a big thing at the moment because of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. 6 months, no one's going to listen to domestic violence against men again. The same thing will happen. It just happened in England before. We had Ross Kemp, who is literally known as a hard man. He's gone around the world and he got beaten by his wife. Yeah, it was a thing for 6 months and then it didn't matter again. Simone Biles, we don't really talk about her much anymore. Even though we should have done, and she was trying to bring things into the public eye. We don't talk about it much with various other things about their mental health because no, we don't do that. We don't talk about people's mental health. Even though we know so many fucking celebrities that suffer from mental health issues, we don't talk about it. Who's created anything from Robin Williams killing himself? In fact, his wife still to this day tries to argue that it wasn't suicide.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't like the connotation. The connotation is this idea that he was crazy. And it's like, he literally built a career on the idea that he was crazy, and yet the second it's made into something that's like legitimate in how you see it, now it's a problem. And that's the thing. We don't seem to really get a grips with the reality, and until it changes in society, nothing will change. We talk about it more now. That's all. And that's my biggest problem again with Mental Health Day, Mental Health Week, and Mental Health Month is talking didn't fucking help. Talking as an individual,
they turned it into a holiday.
Yeah. No. It's even worse than that. It turns it into a productivist fucking wet dream because they get to go, aren't we amazing? Give us money so we can give 1p of every fucking pound or 1 cent of every dollar to someone. And then the second it ends, right, get back to work, you fuckers. No, you're not having a break.
Actually, this ties into something I wanted to touch on, and it has to do with charities, which obviously, aside from Brains Trust, when you're looking at charities yourself, what do you look for in a charity that you would want to support?
I mean, you're talking. Well, I mean, I'm relaunching my own charity because nothing happened.
Yes, well, well, that actually ties into it because relaunching your own, you have an understanding of what kinds of things people look for in charities because obviously people want to trust that the charity they're donating to is actually worthy of their donation and it actually has an effect, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of nonsense that people bring forward, and people won't like this. But you know, you either love or hate what I say in general, anyway. But the amount of stupidity that people go, oh well, I'm not going to give this charity money because it goes to pay their staff, and you're like, so they should do it for free. Well, yeah, they should do it for free. Okay, so the charity is no longer effective because it only has volunteers who have no specialism, have no training. That's who's working now. Like, your donations will always go, and this isn't weird enough. This won't be how it works for my charity because the whole point of the charity that I've set up is literally because I have inroads into specific professions, I can get away with asking for favors, and I also have certain professions myself and qualifications that means I can do a lot of it myself. But we are a tiny charity. If and when we become huge, there's no fucking way that'll be the case anymore. We'll have to have proper staff, you know, and things like that because that's what happens, and they have to be paid. So I think the biggest problem that a lot of people have is the idea that their money goes to pay someone's wages, and you're like, that's just stupid. And I have no fucking. I hate it when people bring that up. It's like, oh, we're just going to pay for staff. Yeah, I fucking hope so. I wanted to go to pay for staff because if it's not going to pay for staff, who the fuck have you got helping you? Is it Mike down the pub? Like, what the fuck is going on? I want the staff to be trained, and I want a charity that actually does what it says. So the biggest thing for me for Brains Trust, for instance, was, I mean, one, my wife, you know, it was as near to a deathbed request as you could get because she wasn't able to speak at the end. Was when I was asking, what the hell do I do? How can I fix things? What, you know? And she said to help Brains Trust. So that obviously was the biggest thing. But also, my mind immediately went into fundraising mode because if I hadn't, I would have. I mean, I collapsed anyway, but I would have completely collapsed. And so, like 3 weeks later, I was doing a charity event in her name, and I rang the charity to basically say, "Look, I'm raising money for you. Can you tell me what's going on?" And I explained everything to them. And they immediately just went, we don't care about the money. How are you? Like that was their head office. Just went like, no. Let's not like. What the hell are you on about? Do you need help? Because I mean, that charity is for people that have brain cancer or the family of those that have brain cancer. So they just immediately went, no. Like, who cares about your charity event? Like, what do you need? Like, we can help you. And I obviously, I mean, I'm still in denial now. But I then I was like, it's not real still. So I was completely closed off to discussing it at all.
Yeah.
And so I just carried on with it. But the fact, like, you think some charities, you ring them up and they'll be like, yeah, okay, so you can donate this way, you can get this. That always puts me off. Whereas a charity that literally, they say that they are there for people with brain cancer and the families of those with brain cancer, I ring up as someone and their immediate response is like, well, we're here for you. What the fuck are you doing? Who gives a shit about the money? Like, that was their response. That means a lot more. You have a raid.
I see that. Moose, welcome in, Raiders. I'm your indie game boyfriend, AnjelusX. I have to interrupt the podcast. We're doing a podcast with Up4theChallenge, discussing everything from streaming.
2 seconds.
No worries. Mental health. We've talked about movies, comics, everything else. What's going on, Moose? Welcome in, everybody. How was your stream? What were you doing? What's going on? We're just talking about charities at the moment. Or we will be when Up returns. So yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Tell me the details. What were you doing? I saw you were having your 300th follower celebration, if I'm not mistaken. Fate Grand Order? Excellent. I enjoyed the animes. I haven't checked out any of the games related to that franchise, but I loved the various series of the anime and the manga.
The advantage of a small house. Right. I'm back.
Excellent.
So well, with charities, the ones that actually do it, or even like give you some reason to respond to them. And like I say, with Brains Trust, they immediately did not care about the money. Like, obviously the money is important to them, but they immediately just went, look, no, we want to know that you're okay, because that's what we are as a charity. We are here to support those who have brain cancer and the families of those that have brain cancer. You are a husband of someone that's just died. How are you? Like, who cares about the money? How are you? And that was the biggest thing that really made me continually help Brains Trust. I mean, I've done what many consider being ridiculous things for them now, and that's why.
Well, that's the thing, because we especially with Twitch streamers, there's all kinds of charity events going on all the time for all kinds of charities. And one of the things I get commonly asked when I talk to people is, how do you go figuring out which charities you want to support? And, you know, how do you find the good ones from the bad ones, and what do you look for? And you're absolutely right, especially when it comes to paying staff. You want a charity to be effective, they need to pay skilled professionals to do the job, whether it's their marketing or their outreach programs, or, you know, depending on what kind of charity it is, having boots on the ground, whether it's research or other things. They need to pay people, because volunteers generally won't work as hard as paid professionals will. And you need skilled people to make a thing happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and like I say, it can depend on the size of the charity. Like I say, I'm restarting my own charity, mainly because of British banking systems are ridiculous, and so yeah, they basically wouldn't set a bank account up for us, even though that goes against all of the way of setting up a charity. But anyway, so we're relaunching it, but it's a very small charity, so for us, we can do voluntary stuff because we, as the trustees, we have a skill set. But when you get to a big enough size, then that's very different. And I will never, and I've said this to my trustees, I will never fundraise for our charity. That is not my place. Unless it's a bucket outside somewhere, I'm never going to actively run a marathon for us. I'm not going to stream for us, because one, that seems too direct to me, for one. But also, I made a promise to help Brains Trust because of my wife, and that is the promise. That There is no other charity I support. That's just it. There just isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
I support Brains Trust, and I will do what I need to make sure that my mental health charity succeeds. And that's why I think a lot of people may have expected the charity to have just disappeared after the bank caused issues, but that's not who I am. I started it. It's going to fucking succeed. But Brains Trust is who I'm raising money for, so it's always going to be that. So, and they are getting to be a bigger charity. But like I say, I actually get very annoyed by charity always being on Twitch. I mean, I'll admit, I get personally kind of hurt by a lot of it, because a lot of times I find that there's people that randomly just support a charity because it brings people into their stream. They have no connection with the charity. It's never helped them. It's never helped a member of their family. They know no one that it's done anything for, but it brings people in and they get thousands of dollars. I'm doing something directly because of my wife. When she was dying, asked me to help the charity, probably for my own mental health, because she knew I would do it so that it gave me something to do, and to support her as well. And it's in memory of her, and that's all I do it for. And then I get a few hundred, that sounds really harsh against everyone that's donated, and it's not meant to, because that's fucking amazing. But I do get irritated with that interaction that people have with charities on Twitch. I want the charity to mean something. If I go in somewhere and it's someone supporting Johns Hopkins and it's because a friend of theirs had been through it, or fucking absolutely right, let's support you, absolutely. The other day, somebody in my community was doing a stream for Student Minds, who I mentioned earlier, and Student Minds are a mental health group, and she has suffered with mental health and is a student. Of course I'm going to fucking raid into you. You're doing it. Like, great. Like, for me, there has to be some kind of connection. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Because I always see this, especially in England, people do marathons through charities, because charities have a thing called a golden ticket, which means they can run the marathon for free. And it seems a bit like that with a lot of the Twitch streamers, and that does annoy me.
Well, that's partly why I bring it up, because obviously, like, even now I'm supporting Stack Up. This year it's going to be Stack Up and Extra Life. I've done Extra Life for years, and it's because it goes to the IWK in Halifax, which has helped several of my children, especially when they were babies, right? And Stack Up is geared towards military, veterans, and active duty members. My brother is currently serving. My relatives, my great uncle was actually a professor at the Naval College. My grandfather and my great-grandfather were both merchant marines. So I have got military members throughout my family currently serving, or, my ancestors. And I was in the reserves for a short period of time, but I don't really count that because it didn't go anywhere, because, well, I ended up developing a heart condition that nearly killed me. Oops. Otherwise, I probably would have went full military, and in another life it would have been a different story, because so much of my family background is in that, and I actually really enjoyed the atmosphere and the structure of it. It tickled my ADHD brain quite a bit to have that kind of structure.
Apparently, I remind a lot of people of Royal Marines. I've never quite understood it, but I've had a few people call me that. Actually, a former US Marine assumed that I was former Royal Marines. I don't know what the hell it is. But yeah, no, like you say, that's a connection. That's a direct connection that makes sense. And so it sounds very harsh, because it sounds like I'm just bad-mouthing any kind of one that wants to do a charity. And of course, we all have to help the charity in the end. But it's just, especially on something like Twitch, that's when I find it more irritating. And if it's people on the streets, fine. Like, I might hold out a bucket for someone, because it's different. I do get irritated by that, but I find that if you're gonna, I think supporting a charity, you can support any charity you want, but as a streamer, I think personally, you should have a reason for that, because otherwise it seems too much like clout chasing, and I fucking hate it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there are, people who stream for charity, they make it a big event and they get all kinds of viewers, which is great. Absolutely great. But then it just seems like they're always doing different ones, and it changes constantly. Yeah. And it seems like a numbers chase. And unfortunately, that's part of what it is. Because, it's that whole thing with the positivity crowd.
Oh,
being overwhelmingly positive, and
I fucking hate that. I fucking hate the positivity crowd. I always specify that I if you saw me on paper, if the paper version of me, I sound like that because diploma in teaching for mindfulness, diploma in teaching for meditation. I've created a course on mindfulness. I'm running a charity. I wear the Buddha. I have the singing bowl. I look like that. I have that kind of thing, that LA wellness bullshit. But then in reality, that's just not me because that doesn't fucking help anyone. Don't get me wrong. There are some people it will help, of course. But in the long run, no, it won't. It gives people this kind of airy fairy fucking stoned bullshit. It's hippie nonsense. And it pisses me off because it doesn't actually deal with anything. It doesn't deal. Mindfulness isn't meant to be sitting in the corner saying, Mindfulness is actually dealing with your fucking problems. That is what mindfulness is. It is dealing with what is going on right fucking now, not going and pretending everything is okay. That is not what mental health is. And so much of that has come forward, especially on Twitch. And I hate it. It's why when people say on Twitter, when people every now and again, you'll get somebody that goes, hey, I want to hang out with more wholesome and positive creators. Put them here. And someone puts my fucking name. And every single time I go, I'm not wholesome. Because I'm not a wholesome or technically a positive person. I'm a mental health streamer that directly talks on mental health, that is studying in mental health, whether that's the diploma in counselling or the masters in global mental health that I've interrupted at the moment. I have dealt with things in terms of mental health for my entire life. I've also interacted with people in a professional sense in mental health. I was a politician that helped people with mental and physical disabilities. And so that's what I do because I deal with the reality of it. I don't like to just be this, oh no, I'm wholesome and everything's going to be okay. And here's today's Dumbledore quote, fuck off. Like, it really irritates me. It really irritates me. Like, you've seen in my stream, there's some people, I'm quite nice and I'm like, look, for me, please go and do this. And I talk to them quite, like a teacher or that kind of thing. Like, for me, if you're not going to do it for yourself, okay, we'll deal with that later. I know there's a lot of self-hate for you, but for yourself right now, how about, at least for me and for the 100 Acre Wood, my community, go and grab something to eat for me. I will talk to people like that. But at the same time, I will say to someone, no, you are wrong. Those voices in your head are wrong. And I know that you're trying to find a reason to have a go back at me. So I'm going to list exactly what your mind is telling you right now. And they're all fucking wrong. You do need to deal with this. And we're going to make sure, because the different people are different. We all deal with our mental health and other things in a different way. So when people just do that fucking positivity and wholesome train, it fucks me off no end. Because I cannot think of anything that pisses me off more. If somebody came to me in terms of my mental health with all of that, I would want to put their head through a wall. Like, fuck you. It's because it's along with the empathy bullshit for the same thing for me. And it's just, I really hate it. Luckily, I didn't really have any. I had maybe a couple of people that tried doing that after my wife died. But like, if you're gonna come with me of like, oh, tomorrow's another, fuck off. Like, there's a Dara O'Brien quote, comedian, who makes a comment about when you talk to people and their answer to life's biggest problems is, oh, there's more to life than answers. Get in the fucking bag. Like, just everyone put them in a big bag and hit it with a stick, and we don't care which one of them gets the most of the fucking hits. Like, no.
That's the problem, especially with Twitter and streamer Twitter, is all the people like myself. I occasionally, if I find a quote or something that I find inspirational, I'll share it. Or if I'm feeling particularly positive in that moment of that time when I tweet, I may share a positive message. But then, a couple hours later or the next day, I'm having a shit day. I'm going to be up front and go, I'm having a shitty day. Because that's life.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is something that a lot of supposed mental health streamers don't like to do. And these are not the people I interact with. These are the ones that pretend they're mental health streamers and just use the hashtag and then tell people they're trauma dumping. Also, not a thing. And that Twitch streamer that uses it, please come at me. Go fuck yourself. You probably killed that person. Anyway, like, those kind of people don't like to show off that they're they're going through a bad time because because that we can't be because we need to be there for them. Okay, so you need to laud yourself above them, is what you're saying. You need to be better than them. You need to think of yourself as not having the same human fucking emotions as anyone you're trying to help. No, that's not how it works. People in trauma will always act like they're in trauma because they're in it, and you have to relate to that. Because what the fuck is the point of you otherwise? I've always hated that side of it. And, on my Twitter, I do a daily thing for a few seconds where it's just me making a comment for the day. Sometimes it's me saying that voice in your head, it's wrong. It can go away. Like, it's those kind of things. But I never completely will go on the kind of the positivity idea because it's all bullshit. I have never classed myself as a positivity person. I never will. I've had people say it to me, and no one does anymore because I've told them, no, I am not one of them. I will never be one of those. Those people that give you a Dumbledore quote as an explanation for why life is shit, fuck them. Just not. It's just no. Life is shit. Life is shit. Life happens. Life is shit. And we need to fucking accept that, whether we're streamers or whatever we are. And if you have someone coming to stream and you are always just amazing and your hair's done and oh yeah, hey guys, then okay, so that person that's watching you that's having a shit time so many times, they now think, why can't I be them? Why can't I be as good as them? Why can't I live up to them? They're doing so much better than me because you're selling them a fucking lie. That's the problem. Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem with Twitch. One thing that I hate and one thing I like is that I enjoy finding people who present them, who are who they are. But with Twitch, you have to shift through a lot of shit to find one person who's even remotely genuine.
Yeah, and I mean, there is, of course, issues with that because no one's genuine. Yes. And I've made this comment, and certain people don't like it, but not one of us is genuine half the time, even to ourselves. Every single one of us puts on some kind of mask simply to go outside. Many times to say good morning to our partner because we may not have woken up in the best idea, but we all put on some kind of mask, and we do it even more when we go on Twitch, even when we're being as genuine as we can be. As I said before, my default is anger and upset. If I really, really said the things that I truly meant, if some people that were doing mental health truly did that, half the time would be just grabbing people and fucking shaking them. Like, why the fuck can't you see inside my head? Like, that's what the reality of it is. But that's the same for fucking everyone. And I really hate the fact that we've come away from the idea that we're not allowed to think those things. This isn't 1984. Like, fuck that. We're allowed to be that. And so we do have a mask up all the time.
Yes.
We are not... we will use the thing that I always say about myself and everyone is I am an arsehole. I am an arsehole, and I have no problem with that. Because as we go with the Die Hard 2, everyone is an arsehole. It's just whether I'm your kind of arsehole. And I find this the easiest way to do it. We go in the idea of everyone is wonderful, the sunshine and raindrops and fucking all that nonsense. Then when somebody truly lets you down, or when the mask slips, you're devastated. Parts of you are lost in with that persona. And you may have given some of your self-worth to it. And now, well, I don't know who my friends are anymore because of this, because of that, because everyone's meant to be good. Whereas if I go with the idea of everyone's an arsehole, then, well, if I find out that someone's a really good person and likes me and we like each other, whatever, well, you're just my kind of arsehole. But if you're a complete, idiot and you've done a load of bad things, well, I already knew you were an arsehole. I'm losing nothing. And it's why I stick with that of everyone is an arsehole. It's just whether you think I'm your kind of arsehole or not. And I never, I know people don't like that. And I know there's a lot of positivity people that say otherwise, but fuck them.
Well, especially on Twitch, when people, for me, my default usually is angsty and moody. That's just how I am. I'm the definition of a broody writer, where I'll sit in my feelings and brood about them, and then I'll write something. Usually it's horrible poetry or something. But when with ADHD and the way my moods can fluctuate. When I'm having a really down negative day, which happens fairly often sometimes, especially where I'm currently unmedicated because I don't have a doctor, because fuck you, Canada. But I'm not going to stream. I'm not going to push through it and stream anyway for consistency. If I'm in a down spiral, I'm not going to stream because I am no fun to be around. I don't even want to be around myself.
Yeah, see, I mean, there's many of the reasons, and part of it is why I took 5 months off, because I was letting through the default of me, and I was just telling people fucking straight, and that was the problem. And I mean, the easiest way of thinking about it, and the way that I feel that most people probably relate to my channel, if you come into my channel, when you've been in there, if you go into a positivity streamer, or these many mental health people that Twitch supposedly knows and they're fucking useless, if you go into their streams and trolls come in, most of the chat will freak out, or they will leave, or they won't know what to do, and nothing will really happen. You've been in my chat. What tends to happen when the trolls come into my chat? My chat don't freak out. My chat go, Up's going to deal with you in a minute. It becomes a fun thing for the community. The community aren't scared. The community aren't bothered by the fact there's a troll. They don't like when they're coming in. And the only time that it's ever been a problem was yesterday, because I tend to chew them out and deal with them, and then I'll ban them. The only reason it was a problem yesterday is because of Twitch controls weren't working properly. But beyond that, most of my stream are just like, oh, Up's going to deal with you in a minute, and I happily deal with them as an arsehole. And I've had people go, oh, I feel sorry for the troll. I fucking don't. You're going to come in and potentially put my community at risk when they are there because they are suffering. Fuck you. I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what sex you are. I couldn't give two fucks. You want to come and troll me, that's fine. But if you come in and you start having a go in a way that I believe you're a danger to my community, I'm going to deal with you like an arsehole. And that is exactly why I probably have one of, if not the safest mental health chats on Twitch. Because the stream aren't bothered. The chat are not bothered when somebody comes in to attack. They find it as like fresh meat. And so that's when I interact with how we should be, and whether we should be, nice or nasty or whatever. That's why I am the way I am, because that's the safest way to be, I find, on Twitch. I will deal with trolls. I don't care. Come at me. Fuck you. Like, you don't have the cognitive ability to fucking keep up with me. If you did, you wouldn't be saying the things you are in the first place. So go for it. And if you think I'm not going to be harsh and harsher than you will, if there's trolls out there that genuinely think I as a streamer, because I'm going to be all lovely and nice to everyone because I'm a streamer and I'm a mental health streamer, think that I won't be a complete cunt to you, just remember the fact that I'm British, and think about every time a British comedian has been on American TV, and they're the ones that still want careers. I don't fucking care. So,
well, and like same with my channel, it's usually, if it's a race to see who gets the troll first and bans them, whether it's me or my mods, because I don't give them oxygen.
Oh, see, I'm the other way. There's actually a thing with my mods to say, do not ban them unless it's horrendous. Don't ban them until I've seen them, because I want them to be around long enough for me to belittle them. I want to be that dick. I want to be that arsehole that belittles the little shits. Like,
yeah, see, for me, I just, they'll get banned and I'll comment, oh, what was that? That was something. And then I just move on, because I won't give them oxygen. But it's the same kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, with me,
because they're not worth my energy.
It's true. I think that the difference for me is because of who's in my stream, and the fact that they are generally the ones that are worried about themselves. Generally, some of them have been bullied or something like that. It's a way for them to see what happens when a bully comes in and takes me on.
Yes.
It's that big brother thing. They have to feel like, right, well, there's a bully coming in. Oh, Up will deal with them. My big brother will deal with them.
Yes.
And that's why it's a little bit different of like, I don't give them oxygen, but in the same way I do, because I'm like, no, you can stick around. You can bring my viewership up for a minute, but I'm going to chew you out. And I have said some horrific things to them. I think one of my fun ones was I told one of them that I hope their mum was still on Tinder so she could have a child that they were actually proud of. Like, I don't care. Like, fuck them. And people go, oh yeah, but they're probably kids. Well, in that case, they should have had better fucking education, shouldn't they? It's not my problem. If they're going to be there and cause these issues for people, I'm not going to be nice to them just because they're younger. Like, they are effectively coming in and potentially causing someone in my chat to be suicidal, or someone who is suicidal to pick up the fucking knife. That is not acceptable. So I make sure that everyone in my chat knows full well if that person comes in, they are not being dealt with in a nice way. Never. They are not being dealt with in a nice way. It is. I like to think of it as the streaming equivalent of smacking them in the fucking face.
Yes.
and I know that's. I neither fit. My voice does not fit that. I'm well aware of this. My voice, especially if I went into my old voice, which I won't, but this is my kind of day-to-day normal voice, is a relatively received pronunciation, what people think of as being England. Hello. I sound like that, and with my qualifications, everything. I do not on paper sound like that. So of course people come in to try and do that. I'm well aware that's not like it, but I'm going to be the honest one and deal with them. Like, I don't care. I do not care. Especially, and I've said this before, I think my level of caring is lower than what people think it is. After my wife died, why do I care? That I don't care for these people. I don't care for these people that are coming in and causing others harm for no reason. They are to be dealt with harshly. That's kind of it for me.
So you're saying you don't have empathy for these people? Is that what you're saying? You don't have empathy for them?
I have no empathy. I have no sympathy. I have no care. I could not care less. They can fuck off. Simple.
Well, they make their choices. They pay the price. It's it's just like. And I have them banned the same way. Like, there have been times where a troll might come in and I won't even know they're there until they've been banned. And I'll just see so-and-so is banned and I'll be like, no, that was a thing. And I just carry on because, I don't have the same kind. Let me pause a moment. This is something that I've discussed with Rect and other people, and it's that term community. When it comes to Twitch, where do you sit when it comes to that particular word? Because it's very buzzwordy.
I mean, I don't use it. It's the 100 Acre Wood. So I have a community, but it's called the 100 Acre Wood. So I refer to it as the 100 Acre Wood. You're in the 100 Acre Wood. That's how I refer to it. I will use it if I'm using it in terms of someone being part of other communities that I think might help them if they're having a dark time, like, if they're part of Mindset by Dave's community, for instance. But then I will also say you're part of the Diversity, because that's what his community is. So I might use that more to be like, you're part of Diversity, which I fucking love that, and I really hate that he got there first, because diversity. So smart. But yeah, like I'll send it to his community, or wherever it is. But no, community is a buzzword, but I get why it's a buzzword. Like, everything that's cliched and shit, it could be cliched and shit for a reason. So, like, I don't mind using it, but I tend to just call it the name what it is, which is the 100 Acre Word, and that's all because of Pooh Bear and everything else, which again leads back to my wife. So, I tend to just call it the 100 Acre Word.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because as much as people might not like using the word to describe their Twitch channels or their Twitch communities, I can't think of another word that would work.
Well, that's why I don't use it.
Like,
that's the difference.
I can't think of something else that you could use. Obviously, other than the names that we give are things like your 100 Acre Wood, my airship, whatever it happens to be, right? They're catchy things that build essentially a sense of community. That's what they do. It's to make people feel like they're joining a community and the community has a name. But, people talk about how they hate using the term, but there's really not another one you can use that makes sense.
Well, unless you just say chat.
Yeah.
You're in chat. Which, I mean, I have used that as well. Like, everyone here in chat is glad you're here, for instance. I'll use that a lot.
Yeah.
So you can say chat, I guess, and I have used chat. But yeah, I mean, the whole point of community is that it's a community. So yeah, like everything is community in some way. But I suppose the easiest way to avoid using it is to not refer to your own community as that, and refer to it as whatever you call it.
Yeah. Well, this is why I bring it up, is because we have different communities. Right? Our channels are fundamentally different. Whether it's the podcast or, me playing whatever stupid indie game or whatever game it happens to be, and I'm holding a discussion with chat or whatever, it's completely different. So how I handle trolls or whatever is going to be completely different because we're different spaces. But it's always interesting to get people's perspective on how they deal with these things on their own, because every approach is going to be different. But it all has the basic same goal of protecting the community and the space that we're building.
Yeah, and some of them have to be done in a certain way. So, and I've said this to you and to other people, like, I feel, and I don't know if you have one on, so this could be a contentious issue with you. I feel that if you are a channel that has the tagline of mental health, that you should have a resource link, for instance, or at least know the numbers.
Yeah.
So that's part of it for me. And so you're looking after Danny. Sorry, I've just seen that they're hosting. Danny, if you're there, hey. And he's like one of my first mods from like the very beginning, before when I very first started. So hey, Danny. But yeah, I think if you've got mental health in as a tagline, then you have to have something there for mental health.
Yes.
And so there's a different way of dealing with things. If you are not, then there's a different way of dealing and protecting your community. If you are there expressly for mental health, then I think personally you should be far harsher in how you deal with things. In fact, Danny, how do I deal with my trolls? Because Danny is one of my oldest mods. So, and Danny, do you like the way I deal with trolls? So I think the way that I would do it is that I am harsh, but that isn't necessarily the best way for every community to be protected. Because if there's a load of people going and watching Phasmo, or if they're going into Danny's and watching her play Sims, they're not necessarily a neurodivergent crowd. So they don't need to necessarily have that protection, and they shouldn't necessarily expect it because you aren't using those taglines. Whereas, as someone that is making sure, because those people are potentially at massive risk or potentially suicidal, my way of dealing with it is going to be very different. So there is a difference in how we interact and protect our communities, but I think, yeah, that they can be very different depending on what is there. And if you're, like I say, if you have the mental health hashtag, you should always have something there. And again, your way of protecting someone may still be, because one, you may not be, because if you have a mental health hashtag, it doesn't necessarily mean you know how to deal with those with mental health issues. But it might mean that you are somewhere they can come and hang out, and that if they need help, here's some numbers. And that's cool, because it's, look, you can come and hang out here and I have something for you. If you put mental health hashtag and you have nothing for them, that pisses me off, because you have nothing, fuck you. But those numbers are a protection in themselves, because you are protecting them by giving them something. So it's very different according to your ability, their needs, and everything in between. But we're all kind of doing the same thing. What did Danny say? Where is it? Where have we got it? 0 tolerance. Yeah, I do. Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
So I mean, Danny is probably one of my oldest kind of members of the 100 Acre Words. I don't know if, I think either she was first or second mod, like very old school. Like, she's been around before I became affiliate, and I became affiliate in like 7 days. So Danny's been around for a long time, so she's seen how I deal with people. And it hasn't changed. I have not changed how I deal with trolls. They are dealt with in exactly the same way today as they were when I very first started. And that's because I know who's coming into my stream. I know who's coming in, and I know who needs to be protected. And like I say, I think that kind of stream. I think when you're dealing with people who because that's the difference. Somebody comes in here, because you have the mental health hashtag, it may just be that they might be suffering, or they may feel they need someone to be safe. But they can also see you're not a mental health streamer. So there's a different interaction. Whereas coming into mine, I know that people coming into mine are probably very vulnerable. And so that big brother approach of show me who hurt you, I'll go and hit them, is the way that I think is the most appropriate and the easiest and the best way to do it for me.
Well, you're absolutely right.
Very clear. She's the first one.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And like, I very rarely will ever use the mental health hashtag. The only reason I'm using it today is because you're here. But I do have a panel for mental health, and I had your link on there too. I don't know why Twitch must have reverted something, because it was on there along with some other ones. I'll have to add that back after. But I do have a mental health panel specifically for that reason, that has some resources, some of which I think you don't have on yours, but yours is very comprehensive.
I mean, mine is also predominantly UK, and then there's a worldwide link. So that's why certain ones won't be there.
Mine is more Canada and the US.
Which is exactly what it should be, yeah. But yeah, those are my resources if your mods are bored. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people, because I mean, Northwolf, for instance, uses both, because Northwolf has my resources on there for his UK and European crowd, and then has American links for his crowd. So yeah, that's absolutely fine, and that's why on my page I have the link to worldwide. But I created that list as well. So that's why it's always funny when people come in and be like, oh, okay, so there's this. I'm like, no. I created this. This isn't a random list from somewhere. I went through and I created this list. And if there's something that's missing from this area, I will put it on there. And it's why other people use my links, because it's like, oh, okay, he did those. He's been through those. Those are more trustworthy. So yeah, Danny is indeed a legend, Kira. I absolutely agree. Absolutely, Mama Danny, which I still need to add, and I've forgotten how. I will add it. You will have an entrance command, Danny. We will make sure it happens. But yeah, it's why it's why I have it. And like I say, I have no issue with someone having the mental health hashtag on there if they have something for them, because I always say that there should be, if you are just, say you're a gamer, but you know nothing about mental health, but you have some resources, and you think that you'd like somewhere that people can come in, then I've got no issue with people having the mental health tag. And then there's a little command maybe that just says help, ! Help, that if somebody comes in saying, you know, I want to kill myself or whatever it is, that they can just press that, and it just says, I do not have the physical ability, nor am I trained to deal with this, but you know, all of that. However, please use these resources. They are there for you. If you need to be in here and just have somewhere safe to hang out, please do. We have zero tolerance against anyone being judgmental. And but I personally cannot help you. Fine. I have no issue with that, because that's fine. I think people think that I think everyone should be prepared for it. I don't. If people haven't got any hashtags up, they certainly shouldn't. But if they do, I think they need something there. You know.
Absolutely. And like, it's like a lot of the tags, they get just used thinking that they're a way to get viewers, which we've seen that happen a lot.
There's that fucking, right, so this is where I definitely go on the run. There's that fucking bitch that was on Twitter a while ago, where someone came in and basically said that they were suicidal and wanted to kill themselves. This person not only had to go at that person in stream for saying that, but then went onto Twitter and denigrated that person further for daring to come into their stream and say such a thing when it could be triggering for other people.
Yeah.
Fuck you, you utter fucking bitch. As far as I'm concerned, if you didn't hear from that person again, you're the one that fucking killed them. And that, fucking take me to court for it. I don't care. If you know who, I can't even remember your fucking name, but fucking go for it. Because as far as I'm concerned, you killed them. That's the biggest problem that I have with this, is that people do not deal with that. And I get that there's going to be people that are triggered or whatever that fucking bullshit is. But do not expect someone in trauma to act like they are not. When someone that has just been shot through the fucking heart comes into your A&E, your ER, whatever you want to call it, you don't then go, well, we can't help them because we're already dealing with this person over here with a fucking broken ankle. You deal with the person that's in the most danger. That is the person coming in and saying that they want to kill themselves. And that person also had on their stream a mental health hashtag and then tried to defend themselves by saying, yes, but that just means because I suffer from mental health issues. In which case, you should know fucking better.
Yes.
I really got irritated by that whole thing. That was completely unacceptable from them. You deal with the person. It's triage. It is a natural triage. You deal with the person that's most vulnerable, and the person that was most vulnerable was the person that was suicidal. It wasn't the rest of the people. I'm sorry, there are maybe other people in there that may have been triggered, but that person was literally life and death. You deal with them first. And again, if you're going to have that mental health attack, you could have literally just had a command that just says people in this chat are maybe vulnerable. I personally don't know. Here are some resources. You could have had that. You could have literally said, I'm worried for my community that they may be, whatever, and have it in a command response. And you could have had that on there, and I'd have been fine with it, because then you're at least doing something. Because the biggest thing is, how many times did that person reach out that day? How many times did they reach out to friends, family, doctors, Twitch, finally potentially coming on to, and we may assume that this person was potentially a fan of this person, coming on to their stream, finally reaching out to someone who they thought might be there for them, might be there, they respected, or just someone that might fucking listen, and they're immediately told off for fucking coming into and daring to be there.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It should not be accepted. And that person should be fucking banned from Twitch. I'm sorry. Fuck that person right off. It is sickening. They should not have been allowed to have that response. Because you may have been the first person to go to, or you may have been the last before they actually picked up the fucking knife. You don't know what part of the journey there. And literally that response, that exclamation mark help, or whatever you want it to be, shows that person you're listening. And that, so many times, is all that's needed. How many times that person tried to reach out and no one's responded? And that one time when you're even saying, I cannot deal with this personally, but here are resources. Please go and get help. Yeah. That person still knows that they have been seen. Someone has seen them. Someone has gone, I care enough to give you these resources, not get the fuck out because you're traumatizing everyone else. It pisses me off beyond belief.
Well, absolutely. I mean, people, some people, they want the recognition without the responsibility. And unfortunately, if you're saying you're talking about mental health, that implies a kind of responsibility that you're going to listen, and people are going to seek that. And when people show up who are in crisis and you're supposed to be talking about mental health, that's going to happen. And people shouldn't act surprised when it does.
Exactly. It's a triage. It's a triage. And if you cannot deal with it, I have no issue with someone that can't deal with it. Because not everyone's up for dealing with it. Absolutely. At certain points, I can't. That's why I have the resources. Yeah. But if you're going to use the hashtag, have the resource ready. That's all I ask. If you have, right, so let's say you don't have any hashtags up and somebody comes in and you freak out. I don't like it, but at least you kind of have a reason to, because you weren't expecting it. Nothing's there saying that you should be able to deal with it. Like, you don't know what the fuck to do. I mean, this happened to Dr. Lupo. He had no tags up. He certainly didn't. And he basically said, I'm going to check on, somebody came in and basically said, here's the money, the last of my money, because I'm going to, off myself. And he stopped his entire stream, said, I'm going to expect you back here tomorrow. My mods are going to check on you and everything in between. So, even those that aren't prepared for it can be prepared for it, kind of thing. But if you're going to use the words, all you need to do is show them that they're seen. So many times, just show them they're seen. If that person continues with it, then that's a different story. But you just all you need to do is just be like, if I'm putting this mental health hashtag up because I am someone that's suffering, then I should know better, and I just want to show that person that they're seen. And you can literally say, and you can have a command, you can write anything you fucking want. It could literally say, I have no idea what I'm doing. I am only here playing games, but I know that people need help. Here it is. You could say all that and just be like, look, I don't know and I cannot help you, but I put mental health in my hashtag because I thought people might come here and be able to find the resources that they couldn't find. Done. It's not that fucking hard.
No, it really isn't. And especially on Twitch, you've got your whole panels. You can have a panel that's got all kinds of resources, clickable links, and you just go, I'm not equipped to help you with this. There are resources right here, or you could have a command, you could have a timer, whatever it is, and you go, please use the resources down there. That's what they're for, to help you connect with professionals and people who can help you. Because I, unfortunately, am not able to, but here are the resources I have that you can please utilize.
Yeah, it's why I occasionally, many other reasons as well, but it's why if say it's a Wednesday when I have my check-in. So my check-in is the one that's even harsher. Like that's the one that's deleted because people are in, you generally come in on a Wednesday because you're in distress. That's why I will tend to send them to another stream that I know has resources or potentially my resources. Mm-hmm. I'll stream into something that may be more lighthearted and they're playing games, but I know they have my literal resources. Mindset by Dave, Northwolf. I know these people have my resources, so that I know if people are in there from the UK, go here. If you can't find my resources, they have them. Or if it's just, if there's a lot of people from everywhere else, like especially Canada, for instance, I'll be like, well, we're going to pop a pause because I know he has a massive list for Canada. I know he's got an amazing list for Canada. He may be gaming at the moment, but he's also got a master's degree in thanatology and has a background in this kind of stuff and has the resources. So it's just dependent on where you're going. But yeah, I always try and do that. Or sometimes I will just go, okay, we've had a chat, guys. Let's go and play some random game like Words on Stream. But if it's a harder night, I try and go somewhere that I know at least has a resource, if nothing else, because that's the night that usually is needed.
Well, that's actually something I wanted to touch on, was when it comes to raiding and deciding where you're going to raid. It's, that's a thing that I don't think people are too cognitive of. Like your general Twitch streamer, they'll just raid people because they'll raid people. I myself am very particular on who I raid. I don't raid strangers. Unless it's like an event. When I'm doing like the Extra Life charity events or the mutual aid events where we're set up to raid a person to pass it on. But even when I'm in those situations, if I know beforehand who I'm raiding, I will go check them out. Because if there's something off about them, I won't raid them. Even if I'm committed to for an event, if there's something that I don't feel comfortable with about their channel and presentation, I just won't raid.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's sod's law that even when you raid into someone that you know and like, that it'll be the one moment where they say something that needs context, and it's like, fuck, fuck, my chair I've got a very old chair that I got from a charity shop or flea market, so it's guaranteed that you'll have that moment that you go in there and it's the one moment where they say something stupid, you're like, fucking hell, why right now? But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've started going into a few streams, like I say, with Words on Stream, and within about 4 days, I've ended up, because he's a very new streamer, I've ended up as a mod on another random fucking guy in Alabama, something like that. I'm now one of his mods, and I've sent things over there now because I'm like, he's generally at night playing Words on Stream, and you can't really go wrong with Words on Stream. And so it's like, if it's not too heavy, I'm like, let's go and do that. So sometimes I will go, okay, what game are they playing? Because if they're not being ridiculous, then they're like just playing Words on Stream. I'm like, if there's no one else on, I know, I do like to go, okay, go and play Words on Stream. You can just chill out and do that as well. It's really kind of helpful for them to have some way of unwinding for the night. After they've been to a stream, because it can be quite heavy for them. So it's just like, okay, go and play this then.
Oh, absolutely. And well, that's the thing. It's like you're passing on the people who stayed with you to watch, to introduce them to somebody new, or to take them to familiar places. I have a list of people that I'm going to raid depending on what time of day I'm on. And I usually stick to that. And, it's because I know, based on what I'm doing and who is in the channel, that it's a natural extension to move on to that next person.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the worst thing for me is that a lot of the people I'd like to raid into are on at a completely wrong time of day. It's just like, fuck. I mean, the one earlier for me was I wanted to raid into someone from from the 100 Acre Wood that I know's been having a really tough time, and they fucking raided into me. I was like,
Yeah.
and it happened 2 days ago as well. 2 days ago, exact same thing happened as well, and I'm like, what? But like for Danny, for instance, because Danny streams at just the wrong time for me because she's in America. As most of the people I know in America, and she doesn't stream late for me. So, you know, I will find it at a weekend probably that I will be able to raid into her now that she's come back to streaming because she took time off. But it is interesting sometimes where you kind of go, oh, I would really like to have raided into that person. Or I really want that person to get a raid because I think it'd actually be nice for them. Like some people, like for that person I was saying, that was in the 100 Acre Wood, I was like, oh, been having a really tough time. Let's go in there and throw them a load of hype because I know that will be good for them.
Yeah.
And then they raid into me. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake. But, you know, sometimes it's just like, oh, I need to raid somebody. And I do always try and make sure I raid somebody. I don't like just kind of turning off the TV kind of thing.
Yeah,
but it can,
absolutely.
It can be interesting. And sometimes you do have to say, look, I know we've been doing this, but now this person's playing Dead by Daylight. So like, I will say to them, like, can you at least stay on for the raid? Like, let's give them some hype. They're probably having a long night. Let's give them some hype, and then you can fuck off. But at least let's go in and give them some hype sometimes. But yeah, it can be very interesting trying to figure out who to raid sometimes because there's so many weird options. I'm sorry, I will try to be better. As you should, Danny. As you should. You know, stream at the right time.
Absolutely.
2 times a day. 2 times a day? Oh, well, we're going to have to give you another...
There are going to be times when I might do that too, actually.
In that case, I think we may have to... Actually, I'm going to warn you in advance, Danny. If I raid into you, the next time I raid into you, if you're on the right time, remember how many channel points I have. You will be making an entire unit that is tartan. Just saying. So I am fucked because Danny also has a load of points in my stream. So I don't know what she could. Well, she can make me do random accents, but she can also make me do stuff as well.
Be careful what you put out there, right? Because you never know. Some people who have a crazy amount of points can make you do some crazy things.
Yeah, luckily I don't have any like. The worst that people can do for me is make me give like a gifted sub. But there is things like they can make me do a random UK accent, which I've just added. They can make me do the weird whistle, which gets really hard after a while when you've whistled so many times. I'm gonna do that for your audience now. The weird whistle because it's just fun. Have you heard the weird whistle?
I may have, but I'm always down to hear it again.
It's whistling and humming at the same time. So
yes,
but it's the fact that I just go through. So, but so you can maybe do that about 50 times. But I don't have anything too bad because I always said I never want anything that could be seen as damaging. Because
absolutely
on a mental health stream, like I've done things where people made me eat stupid like shit I didn't like. But it's not damaging to me. I looked bloody horrendous because they made me eat fucking Marmite for charity. But like it's still Marmite, it's still edible. But I'd never do like certain challenges that I know some people do because no, I'm not gonna eat a fucking scorpion, for instance. So Tier, if you're still here, that's also because I'm vegetarian. But I would make Tier eat a scorpion. So
yeah, see, I don't have weird things like that because I won't do them. Because I just don't. I'm old, okay? I'm fussy about what I put in my body. It's just that simple. Just like those Bean Boozle things. I will never do those. Or the One Chip Challenge. Or any of that stuff. I don't hate myself that much.
That was the weirdest thing. The One Chip Challenge, all those kind of things. Because people got bored of doing it. Because it was when I did my 15-hour stream. Because it was for charity. It was like a one-off event. I'm going to do a subathon. Let's see how fun. It was 15 fucking hours. It was like at 4, and then people just kept giving. But I really like hot food, and so I think it happened once where people made me like do a shot of hot sauce, like one of the hottest hot sauce I had. I did it and just carried on. They were like, "Oh, fuck that then. And made me eat Marmite all night because I hate it, and maybe drink water because I hate water. So it was really weird because the things that I hated most were probably what other people would have found really easy. It's one of those things. It's one of those things that's quite funny.
Well, I mean that's the one weird thing about the Twitch experience is the things that people will put on for other people to make them do. And I get it. It's for entertainment. It's just I can never be that entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason I'm entertaining is because I'm a sweary English guy, you know.
People come to my channel for the puns and the dad jokes. At this point, I think that's what it is. But you know,
I mean, I've said this before. I'm a monkey in a suit. On paper, I look one way, and in reality, I'm a complete cunt.
That's why we love you, right? Because you know, for me, you're my kind of asshole.
Exactly,
it's that simple.
That's the thing. And I remember saying this to Big Kev from Laugh for a Purpose, who runs a charity it gives boxes to kids with autism and things like that to help like with stims and things. And I remember doing a podcast with him, and he just and explaining the whole idea of being your kind of arsehole, and he just went, okay. So you're telling me all these hundreds of dollars that I've spent on all these psychology books, I should have just rented Die Hard 2? I was like, yes. There's the answer.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Yeah. But I mean, I now, what was this drink on stream? Love making me I mean, I never drank alcohol on stream, Danny, but I did drink water. I do drink squash now. I used to get told off for this all the fucking time. Because I have no redeem to make me drink. And I actively didn't used to drink because I don't like water, for instance, and things like this. And Danny used to tell me off all the fucking time. I now come with a cup of tea occasionally, Danny. You know, I've got better. I've got older and wiser. I'm saying that knowing full well I'm like 10 years older than Danny as well. So,
I don't know.
She's Mama Danny, but she's like 10 years younger than me.
Now we get a Kira dance.
Oh.
I will never not enjoy Kira dancing about something. Whether it's the chicken dance or just randomly dancing, that is one of the highlights of my day. Which is why we turned it into a thing on the channel. Like, I will stop whatever I'm doing to watch Kira dance. It's one of the greatest things on earth.
I've started doing the those that have entrance things. I've started saving up on certain people's channels. I'm like, because I like the one I've got in Northwolves, which is the I am aware that I am an asshole. That is the music that just starts playing. I'm like, yes, that is my entrance. I'm aware that I am an asshole, but I don't care about all of that though. It basically sums me up as a streamer.
Yeah.
So
usually when I have the option, it's a piece of the Thundercats theme because I'm that 80s kid.
Yeah, fair. I mean, oh god, the original Thundercats. There's so many better things from the 80s. Captain Planet as well. I'm sorry, but Captain Planet.
Oh, absolutely.
I love Captain Planet.
Like most of my alerts are either 80s or anime or clips of my friends.
Well, yeah, because it's people that were born in the 90s that then go, oh, I'm a 90s kid. It's like, no, I was a teenager in the 90s. I'm a 90s kid. You aren't.
Yes. Oh, exactly.
Oh dear. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea of just being an arsehole is a completely valid one for a mental health person. I think it's how
absolutely.
I
mean,
why I don't like counselors.
It's part of being real is accepting yourself, and you know, people want to be accepted by others. Well, you have to. As cliche as it sounds, if you can't accept yourself, how can you accept anyone else anyway?
I mean,
well, or maybe that's not quite the way to put it.
Yeah, because I mean, I say a lot that, you know, do as I say, not as I do, because I mean, again, I did another podcast with Big Kev and RJ from Untapped Keg. And we were talking about things, and I made the comment like partway through, of which one of us has looked in the mirror in the past 2 days and called ourselves a piece of shit, and every single one of us put our hands up. So I don't know if accepting myself, but I think I live in the idea of on a good
Maybe it's
day
recognition.
I'm my own. Well, I think on a good day
Recognizing yourself.
I'm my own. Well, I'm my own kind of arsehole on the right day.
Mm.
But I don't like. I like to live in the area where I know I can be a complete cunt. I know I can be a complete arsehole, and that is me. And I have no issue. I have no problem with that. Especially coming from the world of politics and sales, because the best people in those are arseholes, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad people. Because you look at politics, the people that are the best people, the only reason they get anywhere is because they're arseholes to the bad people.
Yeah.
You can't be good and good. You are good and an arsehole. Like, that's the only way that works, because otherwise you get destroyed by everyone else. So being an arsehole doesn't mean you're a bad person, but it does mean that you will not just pretend you're fucking Dumbledore. Like, that's the difference. But yeah, no, that's I have self-hate up the wazoo. Like, I think that's the thing. And that's why I've said before about the idea of having this this fascia, this idea of how we are for the outside world, because it's how we have to act for other people to interact with us. But I'm also, on the other point that you made earlier, I'm also very open about what I actually feel. Like I did in the podcast with Big Kev, I did his podcast, and I was quite straight up about, I fucking hate myself. Like, but that's, and that was a completely different chat. And it's, people find it weird. And it's also interesting because some podcasts I go in and I talk about my wife and I completely break down and I just start crying. And sometimes I don't, like I haven't tonight, but I never know what I'm going to be. So I never know in what mood I'm going to be, but I also know that I can completely switch to be a complete arsehole. So I'm going to assume that from the start. And I'm just going to be like, no, I'm an arsehole.
This reminds me of a moment, and I think I've talked about this before on stream. It was several months ago, but it was the most profound thing to happen to me in the last couple of years, which is interesting to say because it's been a pretty weird couple of years. And it was just a simple moment where I was in the bathroom, as you are, and I looked up in the mirror, looked at myself, and I smiled at myself. And then I cried for an hour.
Yeah, it's weird because you can be in those times where you're just like, oh no, this is good, but then you have a go at yourself for daring to think that.
Yeah.
It's like I have, especially just after my wife died, I used to just break down because of the fact that I had allowed myself 5 minutes not thinking about her. I'd given myself 5 minutes respite from crying, and then I'd cry harder because of the fact that I hadn't cried. So yeah, it's our own mental health is fucked. Like, we are crazy, and that's fine. And again, YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, crazy, yes, that's a word that you're allowed to use. You just don't use it against people as a fucking insult. If you're finding a problem with the word crazy, it's because your mind is automatically putting it as an insult. We are doing it as a descriptive word for those of us that have mental health issues. So which one of us is actually the one that should be shouted at, you fucking bastards? Anyway, so yeah, I know I've had people try and cancel me before. It didn't work too well. It doesn't work too well if the person that you're trying to cancel doesn't care. But yeah, we are, as Danny just said, we are our own worst critics, most of us.
Absolutely.
I always say to people, we all deal with those demons every fucking day because those demons are there. And I think, as you said earlier, we have to show people more that those exist for us, because if we don't show them they exist for us, then you get to think that they're only there for you, and that the things that those demons say are true. And now, I've just made it up, or this is this and this is this. It's like, no, I have those voices too. They can fuck off. Like, we all have them, but we're our own worst critics, because the demons in our head always scream. They always scream. If you've managed to get up today, they're screaming at you. If you didn't manage to get up today, they're screaming at you, but a little bit less. They're still screaming, but they scream more when you start to win, because you don't need to scream if you're winning.
Yeah.
Think about the World Boxing Championships. Think about when Tyson Fury, the complete arsehole that he is, but when he took on the American champion, and I always use that as saying that that's the difference between a winner and a loser, and the demon and you, is that the demon shouts because it's losing. You don't, because you're not. And in the interview beforehand, Wilder, that was who he was up against. Wilder said this whole, I'm going to keep this short, and then went on for about 5 minutes. And Tyson Fury just went, I'm going to knock you the fuck out. And that was it. And it's like, that's the difference. And that's the difference between you and your demons, is that the demons will scream and shout and tell you how bad you are because they need to, because that's their way of controlling you. Whereas in reality, the person that you are doesn't need to scream and shout to get through to you. That's not what's there. They can just be quiet.
Yeah. Too many people don't know how to be quiet. Like that's a thing you notice. That's why trolls are the way they are.
Yeah, bless the little cotton socks. I mean, the problem is that I'm not quiet, but that's why it doesn't work for people like me when the trolls come in, because I am like the reverse troll. Like, I'll troll the trolls. Like, fuck you, bring it. Actively, fucking come for it. If you're here now, come on. Bless you, come on.
Well, I think I'll end on this question because we're at almost 4 hours, which is pretty good. The only person who's gone longer would be the reluctant hermit, because hermit can talk forever. But what is the best of the things that trolls have said to you? What is the one that made you laugh? What's the best line a troll has ever used on you?
Laughed as in, oh, bless.
That you actually found humorous.
Oh.
That you legitimately found funny.
Oh, fucking hell. They're quite humorless. I'm trying to think. Danny, can you think of any? Danny's been told off for banning someone before, because I hadn't seen it yet. I'm trying to think if there is anything.
I've had one that stands out for me, and whenever I think about it, it makes me chuckle. And it's because the guy said that I looked like I had a head shaped like a jar of Vaseline. That legitimately made me laugh, because A, it makes no sense, and B, it was just so random. And I mean, I ban the person anyway, because, I do. But it still stuck with me because it was funny.
I mean, the only one, it brings me on to a trolly comment, but not from Twitch, from when I used to work the doors. So, because I worked the doors in my younger years. But I once got the comment when I was working the doors, and you got to remember, in Europe and England, we're qualified. So it's not just, you don't just randomly get a monkey. You don't get an ape and throw them on the door. Like, they have to have passed 3 fucking written exams and all that kind of shit. And so, we're relatively professional. And it was myself and a much larger gentleman. And it was quite funny because he was the nice one. But they came up to me and told me, this one made me laugh, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. Was and I actually use it as a kind of a compliment now. They said I look like a reject from a 90s boy band. And I was like, I mean, cool.
Yeah.
I'm the one that didn't quite make it into NSYNC. Cool, fucking great. I mean, yeah, like, I don't think they realised that was actually a compliment. Like, you didn't get into a 90s boy band if you were ugly. But I think that the point they were trying to make was, oh, well, you can't be dangerous or tough because you look like a soft cunt. I mean, that's what they were trying to say. But the way that came out, I'm like, thanks very much. That's the only one. That's a trolley comment in real life. But in terms of Twitch, they're never that funny because, obviously, because I'm a mental health stream, they're usually coming in to try and be complete scum of the earth.
Fair.
So yeah, I don't think I've done anything. Danny's just made a long thing. I don't know if she said anything there. I heard an amazing quote today that made me cry. Maybe not. Made me cry. Best advice I've heard for a while. Breathe well. Make the room. Let yourself feel more than one thing at a time. We are complex and beautiful creatures with great depth. It is not either or. to be happy or sad. Oh yeah, I mean, I literally made this comment to people, and I think I've done it in a video on YouTube as well, is that you can be happy and depressed at the same time.
Yeah.
And so many people do not understand that. You can be feeling, you could literally be laughing as you slit your own wrists. You know, they're not mutually exclusive ways of thinking. They're just not. I mean, it's
absolutely.
it's one of
emotions aren't switches. One doesn't turn off when one turns on.
Oh, it's why CSI can go fuck itself. My biggest issue with CSI and NCIS and all of those that do this is they'll walk into someone's apartment and go, oh, well, they have frozen food in the freezer and they have tickets to Brazil. This can't have been suicide. I'm like, people's minds aren't that fucking simple, you silly bastards. Like, it must be a homicide. No, that person was probably clinically depressed. I mean, their mind was all over the fucking place. So it's not quite that simple, but, you know, those shows like to make
TV
like that. But that also goes back to a comment from earlier. Until we understand it in society, we have problems.
Exactly. Well, since we're at this point, you as guest can recommend who we raid. So if you have someone you want to recommend, let me know.
Let's have a look. So I don't actually have that many people I know on. I tell you what, he's very sweary, and I've only just joined his. I've only just started following him after 2 streams of watching him. He's very sweary and kind of fuck it, but he's playing words on stream, which I don't think you can go far wrong with. And that is, he does this as a joke. By the way, his name, Wholesome Jeff. So it says it in his bio. It's something like, I'm wholesome. Actually, no, I'm fucking not. It's something like that he puts down. It is, let me see if I can spell it out in your chat. It is that. Wait a minute. I know someone who just started streaming. Who is it, Danny?
Oh, drop me names. That works for me.
Yeah, who is it, Danny? Who have we got? You know someone. Who is it? Is it someone we know as well? And what are they streaming, Danny? Come on, Danny. Speed up. Come on.
Yes, let's go.
Who have they said? Oh, have you not? They haven't messaged you. Danny, hello. Danny. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
No, we haven't still got. Oh, here we go. Poison Pink Fluff. I'll go with that. I trust Danny. So let's go with Poison Pink Fluff then.
That looks like
what are they streaming?
A Lego game.
Cool. I'm fine with that.
Yes, Lego Star Wars. Oh, I'm completely down with that since I'm streaming that this week anyway.
We literally talked about Star Wars and Star Trek at the beginning, Danny. So, yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right, raid calls. If you're a subscriber, if you're not, all I ask is you make a little bit of noise.
She doesn't have what's streaming, but she's new to. Oh, she's new as well.
Yeah.
I think Ange's just gone into their stream, Danny. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the thing. All right.
I'll
when do you stream next?
I will be streaming at 7 p.m. UK time tomorrow. So that's what? How many hours in front of you am I? So 2 p.m. your time, I believe.
Yeah, you're 4 hours ahead of me. Or yes.
In that case, yeah, 3 p.m. your time then. 3 p.m. Your time, 7 p.m. UK time. I'm raising money in memory of my wife all month long. So all money is going to Brain Trust of brain cancer people. And so, yeah, that's happening all month long. So it's one of the few times I allow people to donate and subscribe because I never ask for your money for the rest of the year and I'll actually tell you off. But yeah, mental health stream as well. And if you need to come in and chat, please do.
And I'll be on tomorrow sometime, probably in the evening for Lego Star Wars. Anyway, catch you later. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, do all the things later on. Bye!
Yeah.
If it'll actually work. There we go.